Welcome in to Check the Mic, presented by FanDuel. Steve Palazzolo, Sam Monson. We are live on YouTube, and we have arrived, Sam, at our Week 1 NFL preview. We have arrived.
We made it.
At the NFL season.
It is football season again, for real.
Football's happening tonight. We've got Eagles. We have Cowboys. The preview for that one, though, we're going to bury it at the bottom.
Buried at the bottom.
It's coming late. We're gonna tease it up front. That'll be game 16.
Okay.
That we preview because sometimes people listen on Friday or Saturday.
We're gonna do the cardinal sin. We're gonna bury the lead.
Burying the lead.
Perfect.
But what we won't bury is the announcement that we made yesterday. Yesterday, that some people probably missed on our Wednesday show.
Sure.
We will be live tonight, watching the game. Watch along
right over
tonight.
there.
We have a couch set up over yonder in our studio here. And we're going to unveil it tonight. We're going to have a little watch-along. Cowboys, Eagles, tonight, right here on the YouTube channel. We'll go live sometime in and around game time, but just be ready. So you be subscribed. Get the bell going.
Yeah.
So you know when we're going live. We'll hang out, watch the game tonight.
Second screen action. We can now steal the catchphrase. It'll be, 3 hours of commercial-free Sam and Steve.
We will.
Oh,
my gosh, you're right.
We can just steal that.
It'll be 3 hours.
There'll be no commercial right there, I don't think.
It'll be commercial-free football.
Probably need to check those settings. Make sure. Make sure we don't screw that up right off the bat.
There'll be YouTube ads, I think.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, will they be during the live thing? I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, don't lie to the people. But join us tonight. And then today, of course, as we always do, every single Thursday at 9 a.m. And if you're new or returning, if you're returning back to Check the Mic for the season for our preview shows, it's a 9 a.m. start now. A little bit earlier on Thursdays than we've been for the last, almost decade.
Yeah.
9 a.m. on Thursdays. And then, of course, Monday morning, set the alarm, 7 a.m. We always go head-to-head with Good Morning Football on Monday morning.
Sure.
So that's what we're doing.
And obviously, it's football season. We're in a studio recording a show, so naturally there's construction happening. It doesn't seem to matter where we're doing that from, whether it's the old studio, the new studio. There's always somebody operating a drill into some concrete in the vague general vicinity of where we're operating. So if you hear a weird little insect hum in the background, which has just stopped now that I've talked about it, that's what that is, and we're apologizing for it.
Back when we owned the building, we could inform people, hey, if you could cut it out a little bit, we could at least
they did
work it out
most of the time, and we just have to roll with that. But here, there's literally nothing we can do about it. We rent a room,
We do. So
wherever they're doing that, we have no control over.
We apologize up front if that's what you're hearing.
Yeah, it did stop the second we started apologizing for it, but I assume it'll start back up again.
So just be ready for the next couple hours while we're here. Anything else up top here? YouTube memberships?
Yep, coming. They're getting turned on soon.
Soon. So just be ready.
Yeah.
Just be ready for that. Just a little extra perks for our viewers here on YouTube. And if you're in audio land, you got to get to YouTube too, because there's a lot of extra stuff there. If you're just listening in podcast land, be sure to follow us on YouTube as well. We fiddled with the lighting a little bit. Always welcome to welcome.
So I
feedback.
Forget,
we're evolving here in the studio.
I wanted to give that guy credit. Was that a YouTube comment? We had somebody who apparently does this for a living and was like, "Here's the problem with your lighting. The K number or whatever is too high. It's too white. You look dead." And 100% accurate. We did. So we found some way of warming the lighting, lowering the K number, whatever the deal is. So we've tinkered with the lighting, and I think all shots there's more color, there's more saturation to it. We don't look as dead as we've looked for the last few weeks. It's always a bonus.
Lively.
So I think all 3 shots are improved. Maybe yours, that looks perfect. That's human color. That's actual flesh tones.
A little shine over the receding hairline, but
we're
getting better.
The shine is a different thing. The point is you're an actual, shade of a live human in a way that you haven't been for a while.
Scratching the surface of professionalism every day here on Check the Mic.
So
that's how we do it.
I apologize to the guy who gave us those instructions. I can't remember where he was or how he did it, but thank you to that person. We've gone some way. Hopefully, you will approve of the adjustments we've made, and it's a step-by-step process. This is not the finished article. It's like they say, this is the worst the podcast will ever be.
Nice.
We'll improve every week.
Yeah, I don't even know if we could promise that. Anyway, let's get to it. We got 16 games to discuss here. You ready to go?
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna go in order. We're gonna go relevance order here.
Relevance.
That's how we're doing it.
Okay.
We've done it chronologically before. We're gonna go relevance, and we're gonna throw Thursday Night Football at the very end. we'll build up to it. Baltimore Ravens at the Buffalo Bills, the biggest game of the week. It's Sunday Night Football. You'll be waiting all day for this one. Ravens-Bills. Bills favored by 1.5. It's an AFC divisional round rematch in Buffalo. These teams played twice last year. Baltimore dominated in the first game, but Buffalo got the win in the second game, which was close till the very end. But as we've talked about all offseason, the Mark Andrews drop, some turnovers for the Ravens, the thing that was haunting them all offseason as their season ended in Buffalo last year.
Yeah, I mean, the second game, it's playoff Baltimore, so it's not the real Ravens. The real Ravens only worked during the regular season, apparently, up until this point. Look, incredible matchup. These are two of the best teams on paper heading into this NFL season. They've been two of the better teams in the NFL over the last several seasons, so anytime you get to see them go head-to-head, I think it's fun.
Yeah, so what else are we watching for in this game? I mean, it's two of the best teams. Obviously, seeding implications here. I'm torn on whether or not I like watching these games at the top, at the very beginning of the season. I feel like the NFL's thrown a lot of Chiefs-Bills.
You just want all the good games in the middle.
Yeah,
you don't want them at the end or the start.
As the teams get settled in and you start to know what they are, I like these marquee matchups in Week 9 or Week 14. Kind of in the middle of things, not too close to the playoffs, but not at the very top. But this is one of those games we're going to look back and when we're unpacking number one seed implications or home field advantage, as Buffalo had last year in the matchup, this is huge. So it's massive right off the bat. I mean, the one good part about having it at the top of the season is most teams are relatively healthy, certainly more healthy than they are in the middle of the season or toward the end. But Buffalo's been dealing with some secondary issues and a lot of their off-season future-proofing or depth additions on the defensive line and in the secondary. This hurts from a secondary depth perspective. Christian Benford banged up. Tre'Davious White hurt. So they've got, they're dealing with some stuff on the back end where they tried to add some depth this offseason.
Yeah, I think the thing to focus on for this specific matchup on this occasion is Buffalo's defense against Baltimore's offense. That side of the ball, I think, is the more relevant side. The Bills are a defensive style with that defense that they run a ton of split safeties. They've been doing that for years, even before it became kind of back in vogue. That versus a Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, Baltimore offense that can invalidate math even when you have an extra guy in the box. That's the sort of fascinating dynamic. And then if it does become, they have actually managed to slow down this run. They have forced Baltimore to the air. Well, now you're leaning on that secondary that's a little bit banged up and potentially weaker anyway than other parts of the defense. So you look at it on paper and you're like, this is a difficult matchup for the Bills' defense.
It is. It really is. And look, regular season Ravens, as I've cited many times, some of the ways they've played in some of these key matchups, other than the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Every big matchup they've had, they've won handily.
And yet, ironically,
not everyone, but it's the Chiefs over the years and then the Eagles last year. I think every other time they've gone up against a similarly elite top 5 type of team, they've had their way.
And yet for years, the logic was this was the type of team that should be good against Kansas City. It just never was for most of those games.
Yeah, I really like the way the Ravens are constructed. Once again, both sides of the ball, depth-wise. In the secondary, they added Jair Alexander, but he's banged up as we know, and as he's been these last couple of years, but some of their moves, I think both them and the Bills, right? They made some moves that are for the longer term. Theoretically, Joey Bosa addition for the Bills, if you could just get him to the playoffs. The 2 defensive linemen that they signed who are suspended for the first 6 games in Buffalo. Baltimore bringing in Jair Alexander as a big-time buy low. The guy's played 500 snaps over the last couple seasons. But yeah, Baltimore's offense, they have answers. Say that a lot as well. They can throw the ball. They can run the ball. Our friend, do we give direct shout-outs to Andy Benoit?
Yeah. Why wouldn't we?
A little stat pack from Andy. Baltimore led the NFL in yards per play, on both runs and passes last year.
Yeah.
All the stats are in the favor of Baltimore.
Well, what's
passing downs? Baltimore's first in yards per play versus man coverage versus zone coverage against the blitz. Number 1 at everything.
Yeah.
Very few ways to stop Baltimore. And there was only a couple games where Lamar Jackson was truly shut down last year, the Pittsburgh game, the first Pittsburgh game, but he figured that out in subsequent matchups. It was really just the turnovers that affected Baltimore in the playoff matchup.
It is, and that's the thing with this matchup in particular, but also with this Bills defense. Like, they are a classic bend but don't break defense in that they're going to play all these split safety looks. They're going to present light boxes specifically. Like, Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson do not typically see light boxes, right? Teams are generally doing the exact opposite. They're stacking the box. They're putting 8 guys up front to try and stop that run, and then that's what opens up the pass game, and that's why they're really good in yards per pass as well. The Bills are going to do the opposite. They're going to give you a relatively light box compared with other teams. They're going to have those split safety looks. They're going to focus on the pass, and consequently, they're going to give up a lot on the ground. And then the idea is they'll get it back with a turnover, right? And year on year on year, we're like, turnovers are noisy. They fluctuate year to year. And whoever it was, pointed out the history of this Bills defense. For a long time now, they've been breaking that trend. They've been consistently at the top end of the charts in terms of interceptions or turnovers forced as a defense. So that's kind of how this game is expected to go. They're going to give up plenty of yardage on the ground, and they're going to hope that they get it back with a turnover or two, and that's what the difference is.
All right, let's talk other side of the ball really quick, then we'll make some picks. Remember, it's 16 games, not just 4, as we, last time we were previewing games.
Yeah.
We had all day. Josh Allen coming off of his MVP caliber season. The Bills had, I think, similar answers last year. They had games where Josh Allen didn't have to do as much. They did run the ball effectively. They loaded up on receivers you could move around the formation, could create after the catch. They have that similar. It's similar this year. Also have all 5 starting offensive linemen back in Buffalo. I think that was always one of their big advantages as we were breaking down this offseason. The continuity on offense and multiple ways to win. Look, oversimplifying this game, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson making special plays. I think 4th downs, right? The stuff that's really tough to predict, but will absolutely determine the game, right? Josh Allen and the Bills not converting on 4th and 1 against the Chiefs with the QB sneak that may or may not have been a first down. I mean, those are the plays that will come back here when we wake up Monday morning, as I always say. We'll look back at a couple of these key 4th downs where Josh Allen is usually the key to whether or not Buffalo is successful.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you've got 2 really good teams, it's going to come down to the high leverage, variance, noisy things like turnovers or special plays, the moment of magic. I mean, this was, the Premier League last weekend, Liverpool and Arsenal, 2 of the title contenders, was basically a stalemate with nothing happening for the entire game, and then one guy goes out there and produces a free kick out of nowhere. That's the game. That's kind of what you expect this game to come down to. It's going to be close. It's going to be, relatively even, and then one of those guys is going to do something crazy, and that ends up being the difference. But I do think because of the way that Bills defense is constructed and designed, they almost need a turnover to equalize it. Like, they're sort of consciously setting up to, we will give you some yardage, we'll give you some production because we think we're going to be able to get a turnover, and that's going to be the difference. If they don't get the turnover, that could be a problem.
Individual matchup-wise, I want to keep an eye on the Ravens secondary, which I may have ranked among the best units in the NFL, especially when Jair is healthy. But rookie Malachi Starks, Kyle Hamilton coming back, just how they're deployed. And then keep an eye on the pass rushers for Baltimore. Kyle Van Noy, Odafe Owe, Mike Green, the rookie. Are you unleashing him 15 to 20 times per game here? What does that usage pattern look like? A lot of my week 1 what to watch for is more of a question than an answer. If you've tuned in for answers, I'll give you those too. But I want to see how players are deployed, how rookies are used, how rotations look, and that's going to be a big one against 2 good tackles in Buffalo, Deion Dawkins and Spencer Brown.
And how impactful can he be? I mean, again, the sort of the story on Mike Green was this is a guy that slipped into the second round not because of his tape, but because of off-field concerns and accusations in his past and that kind of stuff. Like, Mike Green arguably has top 15 player in this draft tape. And if he's able to do that, I mean, this is the same kind of territory in terms of draft position that a guy like Jared Verse was in. Now, obviously, Jared Verse had an unusually exceptional rookie season. That's not a realistic standard. But, if he's able to do something along those lines, like have that kind of impact, if he does that, he's the best pass rusher on this team immediately. And I don't think that's it's out of the question. I don't think that's, not within his range of outcomes. So that will be a fascinating thing to monitor. He looked great in preseason. It's only preseason. Now let's see him do it against real high-level offensive tackles. But if Mike Green, continues that kind of production into the regular season, number one, it probably changes the way they're planning on deploying those guys. And then number two, I think it changes the impact that the defensive front can have at all.
Shout out to our crack research team at 33rd Team for all of the information that they're firing over this year. It's not anybody individually. It's 33rd Team sending everything. Last thing I want to highlight here is the Ravens' schedule. I don't know I like to take it one game at a time, Sam.
Yeah.
But I also look at the future games as well. I do both. This is a massive game for both teams, but Baltimore starts in Buffalo. Then they play the Browns. Then they play the Lions, Chiefs, Texans, Ravens.
Yikes.
So 3 out of their first 4 are against the other elite teams, right? Final 4 caliber teams in the Bills, Lions, and Chiefs. And then the Texans and the Rams, all 5 out of the 6, all finished in the final 8 last year. So it's a huge start for Baltimore. And when we talk about playoff implications and seeding implications, it's on the line here. Sunday Night Football. Bills are favored by 1.5. Reminder, if you haven't done it yet, get to the Discord.
Yeah.
Join the Sleeper League. You guys can make picks with us, against us. The Sleeper lines, they get locked in, I believe, on Tuesday. So you might get a different line in Sleeper than what we're showing here. Also, this is a live FanDuel line as of record time. Could change by the time you listen to this Friday or Saturday. But we'll pick our games throughout the season here. You'll pick. I'll pick. My now 10-year-old son, Harry, will pick. And we'll give you our picks. Just having some fun throughout the year, but join the Sleeper League.
Maybe this will be the year that you beat your child in picks.
Is he 2-0 against me the last couple of years?
I believe so, yes.
I asked my other children if they want to participate. They're not ready yet.
You want to jump on the pile of kicking daddy's ass in picks?
You guys want to join it? I know Teddy would pick the Titans every week because they start with a T. He's a big Titans fan.
I mean, look, the way your picks have been, that might be a strategy that wins.
Yeah.
Anyway,
by the first letter.
The point of flagging that or calling that out. Number one, by the way, the Discord link should be fixed now. I have no idea what the problem was, but there's a new link. It's been updated everywhere, and the last couple of people that we've given that link to, it's worked. So theoretically, you should be able to get into the Discord now. If you go to the links channel in the Discord, you'll get the links to the Sleeper Leagues. There's a Pick'em League that we're doing, and also a Survivor League. Obviously, with the first game being tonight, particularly for the Survivor thing, you need to get in there before week 1 actually happens. Otherwise, you can join later, but you won't count for the winnings.
Yeah. So get in there for Survivor, regular picks. Bills by 1.5. As of record time, where are you going with this one?
I'm going with the Baltimore Ravens. Regular season Ravens.
I'm also taking the Ravens. First time we disagree here. Harry's taking the Bills.
Wow.
Because we always get questions. Who's Harry? Again, my son. He's going to make picks against us and see how he does.
Specifically, your 10-year-old son, who, again, for the record, has beaten you the last 2 years in a row.
I think he beat you 2 years ago.
Yeah, but that was 2 years ago. I kicked his ass last year.
This is my year. This is my year. All right, Detroit Lions at the Green Bay Packers. Lions-Packers in Lambeau, Sunday, 4:25. The Packers favored by 2.5 here, over-under 47.5 from our friends over at FanDuel. Another epic matchup right off the bat here to kick off the season. Micah Parsons making his debut
and
for
that's
the Green Bay Packers.
Official because his bank was, like you, his bank was flaring up. And obviously the
damaged goods.
The PR machine was in full swing. Dallas knew that he was banged up.
Can you believe that they picked up 2 firsts for a chronic back problem?
How did he even pass a medical?
Yeah. Are you surprised that Green Bay's favored in this one?
Like with Micah Parsons there, I do think that changes things. We've talked before about how only really quarterbacks move the needle in terms of betting lines, et cetera, et cetera. But I do think Micah Parsons is one of the handful of players where if you put them on a team, it is transformational to like a big chunk of that team. Obviously it's not Micah Parsons being on the team doesn't really affect the offense to a huge degree. It affects it slightly indirectly, but he can transform the entire defense, not just the pass rush, in a way that, you put Jamar Chase on the Bengals when they didn't really have a number 1 wide receiver, and suddenly everything is different. Like T. Higgins is a superstar in large part because Jamar Chase is there, and that changes everything about the passing game. The same thing, I think, is true for the defense with Micah Parsons. Suddenly, again, Rashawn Gary goes from, maybe slightly suboptimal number one superstar pass rusher to, like, maybe the best number two pass rusher in the game. Like, it's completely transformational. Those two operating in tandem change how the secondary works. Suddenly, this group of, like, slot corners that are all going to have to play outside, you feel better about those guys because of the pass rush up front. So I get it. I understand why. And a team like Green Bay was already skirting the fringes of an elite team. Well, suddenly now, is Micah Parsons enough to boost you into that category and maybe slightly above a team like Detroit, who the question marks, there are some question marks about for the first time in a while.
Micah Parsons generally lines up over the right tackle. I want to see how that's deployed as well.
Yeah.
Because Gary would spend most of his time over there too. So how are players always move around?
And also just how are they going to deploy him, period? Like we've accepted now for the last few years, and the number would suggest this as well, that he's just become a full-time defensive line pass rusher again. But this is also a dude that can play everywhere in the front seven. Does their plan for Micah Parsons include, joker up front that can move anywhere in the front seven? Or are they simply saying, this is our edge rusher on this side? Are they going to deploy him in the middle where they've suddenly got some they traded away Kenny Clark to make this happen. Kenny Clark was one of their best defensive tackles. Are they planning on lining Micah Parsons up in the middle on pass rushing downs to bring some juice from that kind of deployment? How they line him up is going to be fascinating, and where they play him.
Of course, the Lions have Frank Ragnow retiring, so you've got Graham Glasgow moving over to center. How about just the matchup that we're blessed with now for the foreseeable future? Micah Parsons and Penei Sewell twice a year. We got to see Micah Parsons and Lane Johnson twice a year in the other division. Now you get to see Parsons go up against Penei Sewell in Detroit, Darnell Wright in Chicago is pretty good, Brian O'Neill in Minnesota. You got some pretty good matchups here. But in this one in particular, I always used to highlight Gary versus Penei Sewell. Those are good matchups on that side. Taylor Decker on the other side for Detroit. So just like that first game, you've got some good edge rush matchups. Parsons is also great. Stunts, twists. His athleticism is outstanding if you could free him up because of his closing speed. And we've seen when you do put him in the A-gap or isolate him one-on-one with a guard, not every edge rusher does that. Like T.J. Watt doesn't move around a ton.
Right.
You see Myles Garrett do a little bit, but not a lot. And Parsons does that a bit more than some of the other elite edge rushers. And that's the other addition that he brings. As you said, you can move him around and create pressure from a variety of spots.
And particularly this game where the interior is inexperienced and a question mark, right?
Yes.
You've got the one veteran presence there is changing positions, albeit going to one that people say maybe his best position. The other two guys are wildly inexperienced or complete rookies, complete unknowns. Unleashing a Micah Parsons into that group, just lobbing a fox into the henhouse and being like, go nuts. That's chaos. Micah Parsons has that kind of quickness that just absolutely ruins interior offensive linemen for a group that is not used to playing together for the first time in a while in Detroit. That interior trio has to potentially now deal with a guy like Micah Parsons, who this might be where his freelancing, quote unquote, actually is a strength. You don't know what gap he's about to hit. He's lined up in the B gap. Is he going to hit that B gap? Is he going to jump across into the A gap? Where's he going to go? Because he's got the quickness to do that. And, an interior offensive lineman is going to have to try and mirror his movements off the line, and that is not going to be easy.
So many fun storylines and matchups in this one. Aiden Hutchinson making his return.
Better than ever, allegedly.
Better than ever. Remember, he was on an incredible run last year before breaking his leg. Zach Tom on the other side. They'll be one-on-one for the majority of the time. So it's week one. So all of our offseason questions, we get to get some answers this week. What does the new look, is there a new look to Detroit's offense and defense with the new coordinators? Last year they played a ton of man coverage. Are we going to see Terry and Arnold one-on-one with Matthew Golden? Second-year Terry and Arnold, rookie Matthew Golden. Are we going to see that matchup often? What does the Detroit offense look like? When we talk about play callers and scheme and system, a lot of times in football we think, well, this is a Shanahan guy, this is a Kubiak guy, I do this as well. Just because it's the same terminology and general formations and in plays that Ben Johnson ran, there's an art to play calling. There's an art to the field. There's an art to the game planning. So even if you're in the same system, you're not always coming to the same conclusions as to when to call certain plays. So I want to see that flow, that flow with Jared Goff, right? There always felt like when Ben Johnson was calling plays for Detroit, always felt like there was a flow to it. They were exploiting mismatches. They were exploiting coverages and often called the right play at the right time. And you're like, hey, look, there's Jamison Williams running behind the defense, or there's a wide open end around, or whatever they were running. Does Detroit still have that offensively? Because they're another team, run game, pass game at all levels. They can do it all as long as the play calling and everything's on point.
I also want to see, are there any signs that, because I think generally this offense, from a schematic point of view, is going to move slightly away from a, details-oriented approach to one of more, let the playmakers play, let's just go with the flow type of deal. And I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying that appears to be the approach they're going to take going away from Ben Johnson to what they have now. Are there any signs that is going to be problematic in this game? Or does it look like the same Ben Johnson offense with some added freedom in there, which would be a great thing? Like, can you see the lingering effect of Ben Johnson's installs and years of coaching these guys up? Or does that leaving immediately start to make this a little bit loosey-goosey in terms of how they work? That might not be a good thing. So, just what does this offense look like? Not just from, the plays that they're calling, but how does it actually look in terms of details? And, can you see negative signs of Ben Johnson leaving, or is his holdover effect going to be a positive with the new offense?
And then on the other side of the ball, Green Bay's offense, Jordan Love, our boss, picked him to win MVP, Mike Tannenbaum. Love battled injuries last year. Remember, in week 1 in the Brazil game last year, got banged up, missed the next couple games, and was he was banged up for the majority of the season.
Yeah.
We never got to see we thought Love was going to be not a really volatile quarterback necessarily, but his highs were so high in 2023, and they all seem to come in the second half of the season, where you say, hey, if this guy continues this, he's on his way to superstardom. He's in that top 5 to 8 quarterback discussion. Those talks cooled last year. So now, against Detroit, right, with a lot on the line here, when you talk about division implications and what Green Bay wants to do, with a lot on the line, can Love get back into that conversation? Show that last year, he wasn't bad last year, but he just didn't hit the same highs that he hit on that playoff run that they made in 2023. Can he get back to that? Is Matthew Golden as good as we thought we saw in person?
Yeah.
Does a playmaker emerge for the Packers? And again, on the other side with Detroit, do they have enough pass rush with Aiden Hutchinson? What does that scheme look like? Are they going to play more zone or be as aggressive as they were last year under Aaron Glenn?
Yeah, I mean, this becomes the referendum season on Jordan Love, right? Like last year, he was banged up basically all year. I think it is fair to say, let's kind of put an asterisk next to that. Now, people don't, right? Nobody remembers that when you're looking at stats, years in advance. It's just like, oh, look, that wasn't a great year. So it's fair to say that might not be a fair reflection of what he can be. It's also reasonable to say nobody's going to care when they're evaluating who he is. So this is the year he needs to show that he can become that player that he was in the second half of 2023. If he can't, then people are going to look at him and go, man, this guy's overpaid at that price. He's not an elite quarterback. Like, he's just another guy in the middle of the pack. And, you start getting the same kind of conversation that's swirling around Trevor Lawrence for similar, reasons. It's a big year for Jordan Love, and it's tied to a guy like Matthew Golden showing that he can be a number one weapon that they don't have. And, that again, like that's just going to be an interesting thing to see. Can they hit the ground running? Can this offense look like people think it can look like with that talent? Or, are you still going to see this inconsistency from all of them, from all those number 2 wide receivers that they have, from Matthew Golden, from Jordan Love? Just how that offense looks is going to be interesting.
All right, man. Packers favored by 2.5 here. As of record time, over under 47.5 from our friends and sponsors over here at FanDuel. Where are you going with this one?
I went with Detroit, though the more we talk it out, the less I like it.
Yeah, we don't exactly know what we're going to get from Micah Parsons. Hasn't practiced. We don't know if he's on a pitch count or, again, if something happens late in the injury report and we're unaware of something going down there. But I'm going to go with Detroit here as well, as will Harry. So across the board, We're all taking the Lions.
Pay the bills.
Appreciate you, Lions fans and Packers fans. We appreciate all of you. Never know who's going to pay the bills this year.
And the chat went with the Lions, too.
Chad also went with the Lions. Oh, boy. No one believes in. There's nothing more. You know what I've learned about in football?
What's that?
There's nothing more disrespectful. Nothing more disrespectful than someone picking against your team. Haters, all of them. Anyone who picks against your team. They never believed like you did. Disrespect. Kansas City Chiefs at the Los Angeles Chargers. It's a Friday night game, the second Brazil game in NFL history. Chiefs favored by 3 as of right now. 46.5 is the over-under on FanDuel. Remember last year it was Eagles-Packers. It was a slick field. I think it was Saquon Barkley's first carry. He just slipped and goes straight down for -5. It's amazing that he got over 2,000 after starting at like -5 or whatever it was last year. But then he figured it out, rattled off some big runs in that game. But the field was an issue last year. I hope it's not. Division matchup here, Chiefs and Chargers. What are you looking for in this one?
It's grass. It will be slippy. People will fall over. People will complain about it. Let's just prepare yourself now for that.
You know that's different. You know, it's not. This doesn't happen in every grass game.
It actually does, though. It does.
It does not. Nobody comes out of
really does
games at Lambeau and they're like, man, that turf, I just couldn't even get my footing.
Every time there's a grass field, people go into it and they're like, great, it's grass field, it's gonna be good in your knees, you're not gonna have the ankle injuries, this is great, this is what we all want. And then it's like, why is everyone falling over? How come they're not in the right cleats? Like, why? There's always a bit. Midway through the game, the announcers go, yeah, these guys have all huddled on the sideline, guy, and they're changing all their cleats. They've gotten the 3/4 inch in now. It's like, how come you couldn't see that coming?
What percentage of NFL games are on grass?
Not like that's the
35, 40%. No. It's a big chunk. There's a big chunk.
It's not that
They're still on grass.
They're all anyway.
This happened in the Super Bowl with the Chiefs and the Eagles, and it happened in Brazil. That's the slippiness that you're talking about. Anyway, talk about the game, Sam. That used to be one of the lines.
Yeah.
What are you looking for in this one?
I mean, quite a
bit.
A few things. Is this Chiefs offense going to show that it's actually, I don't want to say back because it's a completely different unit at this point, but can they rediscover that explosive, dynamic, unstoppable streak? Like the reason people thought Baltimore was a great matchup for Kansas City, even though that never actually turned out that way, was that the Chiefs offense was like unstoppable. It's like the only way of beating this team is to keep the offense the hell on the sideline and just run the ball forever. Keep Patrick Mahomes sitting over there with Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill and not have them on the field scoring points. That was the only way that you thought you could beat them because the offense was so absolutely scintillating, and then that kind of stopped being a thing. And now they're good, but they're not what they used to be. And Mahomes, we still, is he the best quarterback in the NFL? Yes or no? But we know he can or should be. It's just we haven't really seen that guy for a while outside of the postseason. So can they find that again? Like, can they snap back into that unstoppable juggernaut of an offense? Or is that just something they caught lightning in a bottle with like prime Kelce, prime Tyreek Hill, Mahomes hitting the ground running, this first few years in the NFL. And now 2 of those 3 things aren't really there, and they just have to make do with what they have.
I have a feeling the Chiefs are coming out firing here. Based off of offseason talk, and really the second straight offseason, they went into last year saying, we want to become more explosive. We have the speed now. But Marquise Brown got hurt. They started the season without him. And then Rashee Rice got hurt in week 4 against the Chargers. Rice, of course, is suspended for the first 6 games, so he won't be around here. But you have Marquise Brown off the injury report, his 4.3 speed, Xavier Worthy's 4.2 speed, Tyquan Thornton's 4.3 speed for whatever it's worth, or 4.28 or whatever he was.
A lot of fast guys.
And Kelce made a guy miss one time in the preseason, so he's back. He looks more nimble than he has in a while. He's getting, plus he's newly engaged and everything. Little spark under Travis Kelce. I have a feeling Kansas City's coming out firing, and like obnoxiously so. I really think it's one of those. They're chucking it down the field. So I might be overrating some offseason talk. I might be overrating some preseason, what we saw there, but I think they're going to be very, very aggressive. Now, on the other side, the Chargers are pretty good with their defense at thwarting the downfield passing attack. They're pretty good at, slow playing it, forcing you to throw the ball underneath. So there's going to be a balance here between here's what the Chiefs want to do and here's what the Chiefs are allowing with this Jesse Minter as defensive coordinator and this Mike McDonald, all the way back to Vic Fangio derivative of let's play with the underneath area where you want to attack rather than allowing explosives, trying to avoid explosives. What?
I just, playing with the underneath area. It's just
what did I?
It's just a funny phrase.
I lost some words there. I lost what I wanted. Allowing passes underneath while trying to avoid explosives over the top. Is that better? Sorry, I sounded like a guy who doesn't know ball for there. I apologize. But I think the Chiefs come out firing.
I definitely think it's possible. I do wonder sometimes with the Chiefs, how much of this is just everyone relying on their priors. I'm not saying they're not going to be good, but this idea that they can get back to that, unstoppable offense that is only ever a second away from like boom, touchdown, blip. Like, is that ever something that's coming back? And are we just sort of, because we've seen it and it was so good for a couple of years, we're like, man, they're only ever, a fast guy away from unlocking that again? Or like, would we be making the same argument for any other team? I do wonder sometimes that you kind of get trapped in that world of just, nostalgia and wishing something back that's never actually coming back. But look, there's a reason teams chase these guys with super speed. They've already, as much as Xavier Worthy may never become, an unstoppable number one receiver that can win in all areas and all ways, like the guy had a bigger role last year than he was probably supposed to and was pretty good in it. And now, theoretically, that pressure or that workload is going to be shared around a bit. Mahomes is still special. We've seen that even when he's not playing at his best in ideal circumstances, he's capable of playing spectacular football. I do think that the Chiefs' offense has the potential this year to be better than it has been in a while.
The other part that I think the Chargers do a pretty good job of is the handling rushing lanes for the quarterback. They do a pretty good job. They'll stunt, they'll twist, they'll add an extra rusher to just slow down the escape route for the quarterback, which Mahomes obviously is great at, right? Finding, hey, if you lose a little bit of contain or if you're an edge rusher and you go 10, 12 yards behind the quarterback, he's going to exploit that. The Chargers are also pretty good at that. So they have to be on point for all of those things, right? Trying to avoid the downfield passing attack, but also keep him in the pocket as well as they can. The left tackle matchup, Josh Simmons.
Tale of two tackles.
Yes. Josh Simmons, Juwan Taylor. We'll talk about losing Rashawn Slater on the other side for the Chargers in a minute, but the new look offensive line for the Chiefs, can they get a little bit going in the run game? Their run game was, I think, ineffective last year when they wanted to run and keep things on schedule. Can they pass protect? Will they get a little bit of movement up front, that line?
Yeah, so you got the Josh Simmons thing will be fascinating to watch. A guy that was coming back off a pretty devastating knee injury. A torn patella is not a gimme that you're going to come back and be the same guy right at the start of the season. When they drafted him, it was like you get the injury discount. People are comparing it to Trey Smith because of the Chiefs' medical staff, obviously. I think the more accurate comparison is maybe Jeffrey Simmons, where he had a knee injury coming into the NFL, and that was the reason he slipped as far as he did. And okay, he didn't make it back for week 1 that year, right? It took him a few weeks to get on the field. But once he was back, he was a dominant force. So you kind of got this discount that it didn't cost you anything. Like there was no downside other than a week or two. For Simmons, it's literally been cost-free. Like he's going to be playing week 1 by the sounds of it. And if he's the guy that he was before the injury, that's potentially an absolute steal for them. So you've got watching Simmons to begin with. The other side of the Chiefs line I think will be interesting. I wonder if this might be a better season from Juwan Taylor than we've seen for a while. I kind of think I compare his year to Terry and Arnold, where right at the start of his rookie season, in Arnold's case, the Lions cornerback, he got flagged a bunch, where they just started throwing flags left and right because he got too grabby, too physical, and suddenly it's like, oh, the way you want to play the game, not going to fly. You're going to have to completely change what you're doing. Not only have you got to learn how to play in the NFL, but you have to learn how to play a different way than you were planning on playing because we've just thrown like 4 flags in 3 weeks, right? They cranked down on Juwan Taylor's like, I'm going to cheat back from the line as much as possible and get an early start. Juwan Taylor was always like pushing the boundaries of that in his career. And then randomly the NFL just decided, all right, that's enough. We're not letting that happen anymore. We're going to start flagging it. And Juwan Taylor copped a bunch of penalties right at the start of the year. again, you're like telling a guy, now it's, you can shuffle forward a bit. It's not that hard. But like you're basically rewiring a guy's technique on the fly in the middle of the season. There's no way that doesn't mess with his head a little bit. This year, they're probably not going to focus on it again that much, if at all. Maybe Juwan Taylor can go back to just being, I'm going to jump early. I'm going to get
year 3 for Taylor.
I know.
Dealing with that.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's never been exceptional, right? He's never likely to be a top-tier player. But I wonder, like, he's been closer to problematic at times for the Chiefs than he has been like a real plus player that they signed in free agency. I wonder if you're going to get a bit of a bounce-back year from him because they're probably not going to be focusing on that element as much.
Yeah, keep an eye on that entire matchup. Khalil Mack, Tui Peloto, rushing off the edge against the 2 tackles for the Chiefs. The other thing where I feel confident about the Chiefs' offense, if Josh Simmons is as advertised, even if he's just better than what they've had at left tackle the last 2 years, that's a low bar when they've put Wanye Morris out there, Kingsley Suamataia. It's a low bar, and I think that's been a huge part of the Chiefs' offense not performing. Other side of the ball, I think always against the Chiefs, you got to make some special plays. Justin Herbert, they're going to have to create some explosives. They have to figure out, Ladd McConkey looks like a star. His ability to win, he can win outside, inside, speed, quicks. Had a great rookie season, but the whole offseason question is who are the complements to him? They bring back Keenan Allen. You still have Quentin Johnston. Then you have the 2 rookies who had a really nice preseason. Keandre Lambert-Smith as a 5th-rounder, Trey Harris as a 2nd-rounder, who emerges now as the options opposite Ladd McConkey.
Yeah, just what does that whole receiving core end up looking like? This is a longer question than week 1, but, over the course of the season, what is that receiving group going to look like? Because you've got one proven high-quality, high-volume player in Ladd McConkey. Everything else is up for grabs. Quentin Johnston is still there trying to resuscitate his NFL career. Then you've got 2 rookies who could easily both jump him on the depth chart. Like, it's a completely fluid situation, I think. You've also got the backfield of, Marion Hampton, the first-round draft pick, the guy with dynamism and athleticism and explosiveness, and then Najee Harris, who we basically haven't seen because he had that fireworks incident, was half blinded for the offseason. But now he's supposed to be ready to go and could be the quote-unquote starter. And who knows how much of Marion Hampton's workload Najee Harris is going to eat into in this, never presume to think what a Harbaugh, Greg Roman backfield is going to look like. Remember how frustrating, just the Greg Roman element of it was for years in Baltimore, trying to predict what it would look like or how it should be deployed. This could be chaos. Like we assume it'll be a Marion Hampton with for a large degree with Najee Harris taking some of the workload. But what if it's Najee Harris and Hampton's just like the random change of pace, explosive guy that comes in? Najee's
the type of guy that could just crank out 3 to 4 yards per carry and play that game that we're talking about, that we've talked about for years, keeping the Chiefs off the field.
Right.
But Hampton, I think, has the big playability that you want to tap into. One of the first things I also look at, Rashawn Slater's out for the season, of course, at left tackle. That moved second-year right tackle Joe Alt to the left side. Trey Pipkins, who's been probably a below-average tackle for the majority of his career, he'll step in as the starting right tackle. One of the first things I think about with the Chiefs defense every week is who's the right tackle that Chris Jones is going to go up against. George Karlaftis will face him most of the time, but we know Chris Jones in key situations, when it's 3rd and 10, with the game on the line, will go up against the right tackle. And much like we always talk about Dexter Lawrence and how extreme he is at doing one thing better than everyone else, rushing the passer from nose tackle, Chris Jones rushes off the edge better than any defensive tackle in the NFL. It's a very specific thing, but he's the one defensive tackle that you could put out on the edge and have him win at the same rate as a Micah Parsons or a Nick Bosa or a Myles Garrett, a top edge rusher. So how many times does Chris Jones go up against Trey Pipkins, and how does the Chargers offense handle that? That's going to be another thing to keep an eye on when it's in the 3rd, 4th quarter, 3rd and 11, Chris Jones coming off the edge.
Yeah, Jones is just able to identify a matchup that he likes and then decide, in 3rd and 12, I'm just going to go out there and win that matchup. And it's freaky how the regularity with which he's able to do that. So, yeah, I don't like Trey Pipkins' chances of matching up particularly well with Chris Jones when he decides it's time to unleash that. What kind of impact can that have on the game will be a good one to watch.
Last thing, Tershawn Wharton's off to Carolina from Kansas City. Their depth took a bit of a hit on the defensive line. We know Jones is still a stud. They brought Derek Nottie back. Like they felt a little concerned about their defensive tackle situation. and in the preseason. If the Chargers can get a little push up front and play the ball control game, I think they can keep it close. And yeah, I think it's another close game that we're talking about here, and it comes down to what Kansas City always did last year was find a way to make one or two more plays. Chargers need to find a way to flip the script there. I mentioned the Ravens schedule. I just want to touch on it quickly. The Chiefs have something similar. They have the Chargers week 1, challenging game, playoff team, division game. Eagles are in week 2, coming to Arrowhead. Then they have the Giants week 3, but then the Ravens, Jaguars, and Lions. So much like the Ravens are playing, a bunch of elite teams right up front, the Chiefs have a similar type of run at the top here. So the first few weeks are massive for the Chiefs just to go ahead and try to get that number 1 overall seed.
The one thing that I'm most interested in this game is that Chiefs offense, though. Not just is it more dynamic, explosive, but does it change its approach? I mean, according to Sumer Sports last year, the Chiefs led the NFL effectively in short percentage of their passing depth. Like they had a dink and dunk offense, right? They passed short and they did not have a lot of deep attempts. They weren't explosive, right? Where does that go to? Forget this game, but overall the season. Do they push all the way back up to the other end of the spectrum? Are they just somewhere in the middle? Patrick Mahomes should not be operating a dink and dunk offense. That's just not what you want to see from one of the most talented quarterbacks of all time. You want to see Patrick Mahomes out there scrambling, making ridiculous plays and then heaving the ball 50 yards on a rope to Tyreek Hill, Kelsey, the guys they have right now. They should not be the bottom of the NFL in terms of short passing percentage.
I think there's a lot of 3 and 4 vertical concepts, like the way they're going to get into them. I'm just seeing an aggressive Chiefs team. Chiefs by 3 here, Friday night, 46.5 is the over-under. From FanDuel, where are you going with this one?
I went with the Chiefs.
I'll also take the Chiefs, as will Harry. So all in lockstep there. 3 of us taking the Chiefs. We're 3 games in, making a great pace here. These are the bigger games. They deserve a little bit more. Minnesota Vikings at the Chicago Bears. Another primetime game. A lone Monday game. Monday night, 8:15, Monday Night Football. Vikings favored by 1.5 here on the road in Chicago. 43.5 is the over-under from FanDuel. We got J.J. McCarthy making his official NFL debut, going up against Caleb Williams, Ben Johnson's debut, as well as head coach of the Chicago Bears. Plenty to watch here on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be reductive or anything, but I don't see how you can look beyond wanting to see both these quarterbacks as the thing you're looking for in this game. We basically have the first glimpse of J.J. McCarthy, and that's a compelling story because it's going to determine what the Vikings are this year, but also because it's unusual that you get a situation like this where a guy's kind of had a redshirt year, where the situation around him looks spectacular. Like the Vikings completely overhauled their interior offensive line, which was the weakness there. You already had 2 really good bookends. Christian Darrisaw is on track to return for week 1 from his knee injury. Kevin O'Connell is one of the best coaches, play callers, quarterback minds in the game. And the receiving unit is pretty good. Okay, it's not full strength because you got suspended Jordan Addison, but even without him, it's a pretty impressive unit. So it's a great situation for a guy to step into. We just haven't seen him, and we have no idea if he's good or not.
I keep changing my pick back and forth here.
And then
keep talking.
And then the flip side, you've got this Chicago offense with Ben Johnson coming in to basically try and fix Caleb Williams. Not that Caleb Williams was garbage or anything year 1, but he wasn't the dominant force that potentially he was supposed to be, right? The number 1 overall pick, a guy being compared to Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers. And, even if those were unfair, that's the kind of talent that he possesses and theoretically is there to be unlocked. Year 1 was kind of a mess. Coaches were fired mid-season. They were then fired at the end of the entire group was overhauled. Ben Johnson comes in. His task is to set that to right? Fix Caleb Williams, get it working. So how do both those quarterbacks look?
So many matchup storylines in there. You touched on it briefly. Like the Vikings spent all that money in investment on the interior of their offensive and defensive line.
Right.
And the Bears did the same. Right, so the Vikings adding Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave to rush the passer at defensive tackle.
And then trading away their only run-stuffing nose tackle.
Yeah, they're saying we're getting after the quarterback. So
they basically went, we have no interest in a second gap. This entire defense will only focus on one gap at a time.
And going up against Joe Thuney, at left guard and the revamped, Jonah Jackson and, what they've done on the interior of the offensive line for the Bears. And then the Bears, conversely, they added Grady Jarrett. They added a bunch to their defensive line. And the Vikings are saying, look, we need to pass protect on the interior much better. Add the 2 Colts, Will Fries, Ryan Kelly, drafting Donovan Jackson. So those just individual matchups. So I would keep an eye on interior offensive, defensive line on both sides of the ball, because both teams came into this offseason saying we have to improve in both areas, and they invested heavily, whether it was the draft or whether it was free agency and trades. And then the other piece is Ben Johnson and Brian Flores head-to-head, which has been happening twice a year. And we talked a ton on this show about Brian Flores is in the middle of this epic run, making Shanahan look silly, making these offenses look silly, the Texans last year. But every time he's run up against the Lions, he runs his same scheme, and the Lions have answers. Now, is that a Ben Johnson thing? Was that Lions talent? Was that Jared Goff seeing it? Remember, Goff used to have the Flores was his kryptonite early in his career, right? He'd be getting blitzed like crazy, whether it was the Super Bowl, whether it was when he was going up against the Dolphins when Flores was there. Then all of a sudden, Ben Johnson's Lions were great against Flores. So now we have Ben Johnson, but with a whole new group of players going up against Flores right here in week 1.
And I think it's probably both. I think Ben Johnson clearly does have answers to this Flores defensive scheme, certainly in a way that most other coaches don't. Like he's as close as there is right now to having decoded, let's say, the Flores defense. The Rosetta Stone is currently in Ben Johnson's possession, but it also does rely on having the quarterback who trusts that. And for all Jared Goff's traits, one way or the other, he is very good at just trusting the instructions he's given. You know what I mean? And not all quarterbacks, I don't want to sort of make this seem like, like a backhanded compliment. It's like, it's not the paint by numbers thing necessarily. I mean,
I was waiting for paint by numbers to come through.
It's the same idea, but I think it's a different emphasis on it. Like, you can have a quarterback who can only exist in paint by numbers, and all they can do is follow instructions, and that's, they are very limited because of that. But it's also, if you're going to have a scheme that does have the answers, you do need a quarterback that trusts the instructions he's given, and knows that, like, if I just stand in there and make this throw, it's good, right? And Goff's really good at that. There were a ton of plays in the last year or two against Minnesota where it's like, if he hesitates just a tick, they're in trouble. Like, the pressure was getting there. The blitz that Flores had dialed up on the play was sending a free rusher who was 2 yards from nailing Jared Goff. And Goff just went, I don't care. I've got the seam. I just have to stand here and rip it, and it's good, right? And then suddenly you've got to play over the middle to Amon-Ra St. Brown, and it's all good. If Caleb Williams hesitates a beat longer than Jared Goff does, right? If he doesn't have the same level of trust, and why would he? He's only, been in the scheme for a few weeks. If he doesn't have the same level of trust and he takes that extra beat in those same situations, right? Flores dials it up. Johnson has the answer, but this time his quarterback doesn't trust it as much, and so he doesn't put the ball in the air as early. Suddenly the pressure gets home. It's all of a sudden the narrative changes, and we're like, actually, Flores has got the advantage here. He's the one winning, whereas the only thing that changed was the quarterback. So I think that's a really legitimate variable here. Even with Ben Johnson having this Rosetta Stone to the Flores defense, does he have the quarterback to make it happen?
Yeah, and that exact situation you described, standing in there and taking a hit versus does Caleb vacate the pocket and go try to make special plays, which he's certainly capable of, right? Mm-hmm. So I want to see how that all plays out. We saw the Bears in the preseason against backups in Buffalo, but also in the practice that we saw have some success in the through the air, liked the way their playmaker situation was looking in Chicago with DJ Moore, with the 2 tight ends, Colston Loveland and Cole Kmet. Luther Burden was making a ton of plays. Olamide Zaccheaus, always a key playmaker, no matter which team he's on. And Roma Dunze was looking good, right? I think I'm just rattling off a ton of players on both sides of on both teams. But both teams, I think, have built a pretty good nucleus around their quarterback. We've certainly seen Minnesota have more success with what they've built. Now that Addison's out, they bring in Adam Thielen. Like, they're not letting any holes. Like, they're not allowing for any holes on that offense, the way they're building that team. And now we have another more Kevin O'Connell data points, right? We're not going to learn all of this in week 1, but the fact that he got the very best season out of Kirk Cousins. The best play or the best results out of Kirk Cousins as far as wins and losses certainly turned Sam Darnold's career around. Can he do that again with J.J. McCarthy? So, man, this is going to be fun. Monday Night Football. They used to go doubleheader on opening night. You like this? You like the Island
I
Monday
don't think
night?
I like doubleheaders on Monday night. It's too
Well, I got bad news for you.
There's many of them upcoming.
There's like 7 this year? 6?
No, I know that. I don't think I love the doubleheader thing, but
I do. I think 2 games is the perfect number to have on at the same time and have clear focus.
One would be the perfect number if it wasn't for having an ad break every 6 seconds.
This is why. I think 2 is the perfect number. The 4 o'clock window gets saturated with 4. I mean, obviously the 10, the 1 o'clock window with
so
8
as much
to 10.
as I think the distribution is silly when they do this, I do quite enjoy the 4 p.m. window when you only have 3 games.
Yeah,
because you can literally I have 3 devices, 3 screens. I can put each game on a screen and we're good to go. I do kind of like that. However, it's dumb when they have 3 games and 10 in the opening window.
I hear you. Last thing about this one. We've mentioned a ton about Flores, Ben Johnson, what to expect. Same question I'll pose to you that I asked during the Week 18 game, Vikings-Lions. Does Flores change?
No.
Right? Does Flores change?
Man's doubling down on his
He's a
Flores.
45% blitz defensive coordinator the last couple years. But 2 years worth of moves from Minnesota, adding Jonathan Grenard, adding Andrew Van Ginkel. I'm sorry, Daniil, going backwards here. Jonathan Grenard, Andrew Van Ginkel. I get confused as to
Dallas
every now
Turner.
and again, confusing my own brain and what year I'm in. So the 2 edge rushers, Dallas Turner drafted, then the 2 interior rushers in Javon Hargrave and Jonathan Allen. On paper, that says, hey, we want to rush with 4 more. We want to do a little bit more straight 4-man rush. Maybe Dallas Turner's your joker player on defense. Does Flores rush 4 a little bit more this year?
No, I think a lot of people would look at those results and the way the Ben Johnson offense has had answers, and they would say, you know what, for this team, we need to dial the blitz back. We need to rush with 4 more, play more coverage. I think Flores looks at it and say, you know what would make the blitzing even better? If I had guys who would win one-on-one quicker, right? I'm not going to blitz any less. I'm going to use the better players to make it even more potent when I rush 6 and 7, et cetera. So I don't think he's going to dial back the blitz at all. I think he's just going to rely on now when I blitz, not only have I got an extra man, but also the guys I have one-on-one are winning quicker.
All right, man, let's make a pick. I have literally been retyping my pick in the document here.
Back and forth.
I think I have a final answer. Where are you going with this one? Vikings by 1.5, over under 43.5.
I'm going with Minnesota. I don't like it. Don't like it at all. I have taken a disturbing number of road teams this week, and I hate doing that.
Yeah, Detroit, Kansas City's not really road because it's neutral.
Right.
Baltimore. All right, I'm going to take Minnesota as well, as will Harry. My final reasoning is going to be, I was going to say Flores against a rookie quarterback, but it's year 2, Caleb Williams. Flores against Caleb Williams, new system, new scheme. And what happens with a new scheme, if there's any hesitancy as to where your answers are, that's where Flores really cooks. So I'm going to go with that. And I know J.J. McCarthy's on the other side. I know it's a road game at night. But I'll also go with my whole offseason narrative is that we're going to feel better about Chicago in the second half of the year than the first half. So I'll take Minnesota to win and cover here by the 1.5. Carolina Panthers at the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's a little 1995
expansion draft
matchup here. They also kicked off the season in 2003, if you recall. Mark Brunell's last opening day start with the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I do not recall.
They won.
Great.
Great win. Jags by 3.5 here. Sunday afternoon at 1 o'clock. What are you looking for in Panthers Jaguars?
Again, similar idea. Like it's new coaching staff for Trevor Lawrence and, what they can create from him. Liam Cohen, can he produce the same magic that he did with Baker Mayfield? Does Trevor Lawrence's career get rescued? And not in terms of like being an NFL player, but in terms of being a number 1 overall pick, best quarterback since, can he actually be a high-end quarterback as opposed to just a guy that starts in the NFL for a long time? And then the other side, again, same thing, quarterback, not new regime this time, but like, can Bryce Young pick up where he left off? And again, for the 68 millionth time this offseason, Bryce Young was playing better than his stats late last year. Bryce Young was playing legitimately very, very good football. I don't have it in front of me, but if you go and look at the PFF grading from like him coming back, he grades as like a top 10 quarterback in that period of time. The stats didn't necessarily reflect it because Xavier Legette was one of his top receivers, and when Bryce Young put a bomb into his hands, he didn't come up with it. Those types of things were happening. Bryce Young was balling. If he's able to pick that up as he left off, and now you've got a question at left tackle, you've got one of your top 3 receivers in Jalen Coker gone down, your most reliable receiver you traded away in Adam Thielen. So it's not, it's not the optimal environment for him that you would have loved to have seen. They added Tedero McMillan, and that could be huge. In an ideal world, you would want him with a healthy left tackle and his reliable receiver still there. But, can he look like the player that he was when last season ended?
We touched on Ike Ekwonu's injury a little bit yesterday. He's not a great pass protecting left tackle. He's fine. He's reasonable in the NFL, but a little bit better in the run game. That's a question mark. Josh Nijman, the expected backup there for the Panthers. Josh Hines-Allen on that side. I know Trayvon Walker's been a bit of a punching bag for us on the show here through the years, but I could see him having a more consistent season. I don't want to say breakout season because he's had 10-plus sacks, but a more consistent season using his power and speed to power. I think we've seen elements of that where he continues to improve. So I think the pass rush for Jacksonville has a chance to have some success here. And then just that entire side of the ball. What does it look like with Travis Hunter? The Travis Hunter story, we'll touch on a little bit more of him in a minute here. The entire Travis Hunter story, it is must-see TV. It is must-watch every single week, how he's deployed, what they're doing with him. But, him and Brian Thomas Jr. as a 1-2 punch. And then Trevor Lawrence, and on 15 snaps, just looked comfortable in Liam Cohen's offense. And it just looked slightly different, where I think he was a little bit more trusting of getting to his backside reads. Does that little bit continue into the regular season here?
Yeah, the Travis Hunter thing. I mean, this is the first real look at what this is going to look like in the NFL. So far we've had snippets of preseason, and it was never really one-to-one because, they weren't necessarily rolling them out the way they would roll them out. Why would you when you're trying to get them to adjust to the NFL? Then you have a depth chart that lists them as a starting wide receiver and a backup corner. But a backup corner, what does that even mean? You could be the third guy. That's a starter effectively in today's NFL. So this will be the first legitimate look at what in-season, regular season, two-way football player Travis Hunter looks like at the NFL level. I think the wide receiver thing is relatively simple. Brian Thomas Jr. is your number one superstar. Travis Hunter is probably going to be the slot Z hybrid type of guy that is your next highest volume player in that offense, and I expect him to be very good at that. The more interesting element then is, what does the defensive version look like? How much is he going to play? How is he going to play? That's where it gets fascinating.
Other thing on that side of the ball, Liam Cohen's offense, they did a really nice job. They took a Bucs running attack that had been bad for 2 years, year and a half to 2 years, slowly made that better as last season progressed, right? Found the right way to use that offense, run concepts, way to play to their strengths. How quickly, if at all, can Liam Cohen get the run game going in Jacksonville? Because that's been inconsistent.
Travis Etienne breakout season? Is that what you're saying?
All of them. Tank Bigsby. I mean, it could be any of them.
Facial Tootin, get him in space for some big plays. So I want to see that run game.
Jags offensive line generally against what's supposed to be a revamped pass rush from the Carolina Panthers, right? Remember, they lost Derek Brown very early in the season last year. And then beyond that, had very little edge rush presence. They spent their second and third round picks. Nick Scorton, Princely Umanmielen. Can they get any kind of pass rush in Carolina this year?
And by the way, so one element, Tampa Bay had a pretty good offensive line. This is something that I don't think gets talked about probably enough.
They did.
They had a good offensive line, which they invested in addition to being good to begin with, and it became very good. And they now have one of the better offensive lines in the NFL. Obviously, when Tristan Wirfs gets back healthy, he's going to be out for a while to begin the season. But theoretically, this is a very good offensive line. You can't really say the same for Jacksonville. Certainly not yet. Can Liam Cohen and his staff work wonders on the offensive line, or is that going to be something that they maybe regret not really going after this offseason? You look at some of the other moves that have been made throughout the NFL. We talked about Chicago revamping their offensive line with a new coach. You know, Kevin O'Connell realizing that his interior was bad and going after and revamping that. Like, there are some teams, Kansas City have made, like, teams have focused on the offensive line, and the Jags didn't. They just kind of looked at it and went, yeah, we got the coach, we got Trevor Lawrence, Brian Thomas is great. Let's bring in Travis Hunter and we can make it work. What if they can't make it work and that offensive line remains like a sort of lower third unit and actually is the reason that the whole thing doesn't work?
I always love, there's so many number one overall picks in the NFL now at quarterback. Quarterback. There's so many of them. I always love when it's a former number one versus number one. Bryce Young, Trevor Lawrence.
But also, what a fascinating, just as
and Trayvon
those
Walker.
Two guys, right, but those two guys went number one overall. And on the one hand, you've got the guy that looks like he was designed, like the Madden creative player, right? Trevor Lawrence. This is what QB1 looks like. On the other hand, you've got this guy that's my size who also went number one, like a guy that legitimately is 5'10", 185 pounds, also went number one, in addition to the 6'6", 230-pound, cookie cutter number one overall pick.
And then the human element that they've both dealt with, right? Bryce Young being awful, getting benched, coming back, looking good. Trevor Lawrence dealing with Andrew Luck, John Elway, expectations, not living up to that. Also dealing with, the worst coach in NFL history in Urban Meyer. So.
True.
Fun.
I do. It's not, again, we made this comparison a lot. It's not quite when Aaron Donald jumped on Alex Smith's back when he came back after his leg nightmare. It's like I think everybody watching that game was like, oh. It's not quite that bad, but every time a large human gets within range of Bryce Young, you're like, Trayvon Walker, for whatever his faults are, is a very large and very strong human being. And if Trayvon Walker gets a hold of Bryce Young, I mean, he could literally, with just a jersey grip, like Hulk smash into the ground.
I think that reference is better for Matthew Stafford.
No, because Stafford,
I'm going to be worried about
Stafford's old man back.
I'm going to be worried about Aaron Rodgers.
Stafford's
someone else, and Tua.
Right.
I'm always worried about
Tua. Yes. Stafford's old man back may well pop like a sequence of water balloons, but I still have faith in him getting up, stitching it together, like putting on a girdle and going back out there and playing again. Bryce Young, though, like if Trayvon Walker grabs hold of him and Hulk smashes him into the turf, that just feels like bad news.
All right, appreciate all the interaction in the chat. They're split on where they're going with this one. Jags by 3.5. Where are you going, Sam?
Yeah, they're not the only one.
If you want to go by 0-3, it was 24-23. The Jags won.
Well, that's all
Mark
I need
Brunell
to hear.
versus Rodney Peete.
Rodney Peete. That's all I need to hear.
Before Jake Delhomme took over. You're taking the Jags.
Yes.
I'll also take the Jags by 3.5. I don't love it. But Harry's taking the Panthers. We got Harry's on an island.
Yeah.
A couple times here. We're going to talk about Travis Hunter a bit more in a second here, but FanDuel's getting you ready for the NFL season with an offer you don't want to miss. New customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet $5, and if it wins, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. You can build parlays, bet player props, ride the live lines. Whatever your style, FanDuel has you covered. The NFL season is here. The only question is, are you ready to play? Visit FanDuel.com/CTM to download the FanDuel app today and get started. FanDuel.com/CTM to download the FanDuel app. Must be 21 plus and present in select states for Kansas in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in D.C., Kentucky, or Wyoming. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut, or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. We want to discuss one player prop here over at FanDuel. Travis Hunter's over-under is 47.5 receiving yards. What do we do with this, Sam? Sight unseen. We don't know what these lines can move a ton from week 1 to week 2 once we have an idea of what the usage pattern is going to be like for Travis Hunter.
I think we smashed the over.
Really?
Yeah. I think he's going to be a high-volume slot Z hybrid player. He will be – it wouldn't surprise me if he targeted and out-caught Brian Thomas Jr. in this offense over the course of the season, I would expect Brian Thomas Jr. to have more yards and touchdowns. But if Travis Hunter ended up with more catches in a weekly basis, that would not shock me at all. At which point, if he's getting fed 7, 8, 9 targets in the game, I think he's clearing 50 yards.
I have to say, I agree with you there. I mean, the very little that we saw against him of him in Pittsburgh, playing in the slot, catching the underneath stuff there. Liam Cohen's slot receivers, generally high volume players as well. So I think that is where Travis Hunter fits in, and I think they give him a majority of the snaps on offense, assuming he stays healthy throughout the game. So I like the over as well over at FanDuel. Again, you can visit FanDuel.com/CTM to get in on the action as well.
The only note of caution with those is sometimes it takes him a few weeks. I would imagine his deployment could look a lot like Ladd McConkey's from last year. And Ladd, it took him a month to get really cooking, and then but from that point on, I think he exceeded that. He would have exceeded that total basically for the entire season.
And then he took off.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to go a little quicker through the rest of the games. But, I mean, it's our studio. We have no time limit. Who knows? We could be here till game
The
time.
only thing restricting us will be the people drilling on the concrete.
Yeah, and maybe producer Will, who's like, come on, guys.
Well, that too,
Get out of here.
I mean, at any point, he could just
Will,
turn
do you
the
have a
thing
heart
off.
out? I hope not. Miami Dolphins at the Indianapolis Colts. In Indy, Colts favored by 1.5 here. Daniel Jones making his Colts debut.
Danny
Dimes. The Dolphins.
Danny Dimes back. Explosive plays.
Discuss.
No? I mean, look, I'm kind of curious about what the Daniel Jones thing will look like.
Danny curious.
Early in his career, there were some explosive plays there, and then they just stopped happening. They completely dried up. He obviously dealt with some injuries as well. I think that was part of it, but the man can still throw the football now. It's not like he's lost all arm talent because of injuries in his past. He can still throw, and more importantly, perhaps, he's perfectly capable of operating this offense the way it's designed with Shane Steichen. And we keep talking about this is a talented team. Maybe the offensive line has some question marks more than they had the last couple of years. But the receiving core, I think, is really good now. And with Josh Downs and Tyler Warren, you have two high-volume, relatively underneath, over-the-middle targets that even if Danny Dimes remains the kind of stylistic quarterback he's been the last couple of years, those are two guys that can take a lot of those passes and turn them into something good. And then on the outside, you have got the enticement to be more aggressive and vertical with Alec Pierce and maybe A.D. Mitchell if he, features more in this offense. I'm kind of here to see what this offense looks like.
Yeah, I mean, if I love Josh Downs, he's dealing with a hamstring. That's scary at this point in the season. So I don't know what happens there, but Tyler Warren looked like he's ready to make an instant impact, both from preseason, from our in-person look at training camp. He looks like he will be a high-volume, underneath target, QB-friendly, soft hands, good feel versus zone, can get open versus man, not afraid to go over the middle and up the seam. So I think Tyler Warren makes an instant impact for this offense.
Yep.
Pierce down the field. Pittman is a high-volume receiver as well. When Downs is healthy, he has that. I mean, you have a good group of pass catchers there. And in this particular matchup, where Miami already on paper had the worst cornerback situation, then they're picking up Juju Brents on waivers, from the Colts as still a developmental, really long athletic corner. They're signing Rasul Douglas in free agency, which is fine. But there might be a lot of pressure on Rasul Douglas to be the guy. I mean, the number one corner for Miami on this team, where it's Jack Jones and Storm Duck. I mean, it's not a good group on paper, though Jack Jones has had some high highs, but just no consistency there.
I think they upgraded in all the signings they made at corner, but all of them are pretty new in the building. You know what I mean? So the guys that are their best players are also the most recent to arrive, and who knows what that's going to look like. Overall, it still looks like not a great spot.
So it's a fascinating roster for Miami because I think they're weak at corner, but you could put their trio of pass rushers, if they're all ready to go and healthy, Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, Chop Robinson, when they're all healthy and good to go, that's a good trio. That's up there with Pittsburgh and some of the other teams that you could trot out there. So I think they have a chance. And then if Kenneth Grant, who's questionable, pushing the pocket in the middle, it's not even a push the pocket, right? It's quickness and just disruption in the middle. That's why they took him in the first round. So there's a chance this is a pretty good pass rush that can help protect that secondary. But I really like the way Indy's pass catchers look, and I think Daniel Jones can at least get them the ball I just want to see if he can hit a couple over the top, right?
Yeah.
Can he get those Alex Pierce shots? Doesn't have to be 60 yards like Anthony Richardson, but at least some of those deep opportunities.
Yeah, Zach Sealer is one of the most underrated defensive
Yes.
linemen in the NFL as well. Yeah, the front seven from Miami has the potential to be pretty good. The concern for them in this game is that like almost everybody of consequence is questionable coming off an injury, and a lot of them are expected to play week one, but still, you don't love that as a timing thing, they're going to make it for week one, having been on the shelf for the entire time. Maybe it'll work, but even if just one or two of those guys actually questionable turns out to be, still hindered in week one, it's problematic.
Got to keep an eye on Miami's offensive line. Patrick Paul, now the full-time starter in year 2 at left tackle. Jonas Savanier, the second-round pick that they traded up for at left guard. He struggled in the preseason. Tua has been able to protect the offensive line, at least from a pass protection standpoint. His quick release, combined with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill's ability to get open quickly, that has protected the offensive line. But every single time Tua has to hold the ball a tick longer, I think it's scary up front, especially with the Colts defensive front that has a lot of potential there, especially if Laiatu Latu, takes another step forward this year. DeForest Buckner, I think he's a star on the interior. So I'll be watching that matchup pretty closely, Miami's offensive line, and if they could slow down the Colts up front.
That offensive line has bottom offensive line in the NFL potential. As you said, it's hidden quite a bit because Tua in any given year probably will have the fastest average time to throw in football, and that's huge for an offensive line. Like, you're talking about, on average, at least half a second and maybe as much as a second, depending on who you're comparing him to, in difference per snap in terms of how long those guys are asked to pass protect. And that doesn't sound like much, but it is an absolute eternity. Like, generally speaking, 2.5 seconds is sort of the NFL standard for like when you want pressure to arrive or when you expect it to arrive. If you have a guy that's consistently under that number, like theoretically every single snap is less likely for pressure to arrive than it is for it to arrive. Conversely, if you've got a guy that's existing on the far side of 3 seconds, basically every snap, you're expecting pressure to arrive. So, like, Tua's release is genuinely the difference between expecting pressure and not expecting pressure on most plays. So it makes a massive difference to the offensive line. But even with that, they might be bad enough that it's problematic. Then the fascinating thing, I think, will be this Miami run game, which has been creative. And for the first time, I'm really interested in Ollie Gordon, because he's a totally different style. They've been stockpiling these undersized speedster running backs within this offensive scheme. And obviously Devon Achane, also coming back off injury, has been really dynamic and explosive within this offense. Ollie Gordon brings something totally different to the table. Ollie Gordon is like, well, what if instead of these fast, explosive guys that can pick their gap and take a small crease into a big gain, what if we just put an old school giant bruiser back there and say, all right, son, pound the rock, right? Like it's 1985. Go nuts. What does that look like? And, last year in college, it was terrible. Ollie Gordon had no offensive line in front of him and couldn't get anywhere. And it was like, okay, this is the limitations of a big bruising back. But the year before, you saw, actually, if you give the guy a little bit of space, the dude can be incredibly productive. So I'm really interested to see, does this offensive line have enough as a run blocking unit to give Ollie Gordon just enough space that he actually looks like, a dominant old school running back?
In that conversation between Grant in the first, Savanier in the second, Gordon as more of a power back than they've had, I'm sure that conversation was happening in the building. Hey, we have to be more physical. We know we have to run the ball against the best team. So let's see how this looks in week one. Matchup-wise, I do think, again, I keep citing DeForest Buckner. That dude could dominate this game, especially against the rookie.
Right.
And then we're always blessed. We used to get this twice a year. Anytime Aaron Brewer has a chance to block DeForest Buckner, Aaron Brewer, the Willie Lampkin,
wait till we get that.
Aaron Brewer walked so Willie Lampkin can run.
We are months removed from Willie Lampkin attempting to block Dexter Lawrence.
Oh, my gosh, I can't wait. It's going to be great. Willie can do it. He can do it. Maybe. But Buckner against the undersized modern marvel that is Aaron Brewer against DeForest Buckner. They've had some epic battles with completely different pad levels, we'll say.
Fascinating human interest story in this game as well. We have the first rapper turned football player in Darren Waller playing tight end for the Miami Dolphins.
That's good.
You don't see that every day.
You don't see that. Good inspirational to rappers everywhere. That you too could just step in.
And there's another one apparently trying to become a college football player as well. It's like Darren Waller's just paving the way for rappers, the rapper to NFL pipeline.
Him and Aaron Brewer, just a lot of way paving.
Breaking ground.
Colts are favored by 1.5 here at home. Over-under is 46.5 in the Dome. Where are you going with this one?
Which I was telling you before, I believe has swung. I think Miami were favored early, and it's gone to Indianapolis. I'm going with the Colts. I do have a degree of faith and belief in this Daniel Jones thing, which may only last the duration of this game. But for now, I'm going to put some belief in Danny Dimes.
Yeah, I think the Dolphins, until proven otherwise, are going to be very difficult to peg because I see the holes and I see the high-end star power of Tua throwing the ball to Waddle and Hill, especially in the Dome. The speed's going to play there. So I'll take Miami as underdogs here this week, as will Harry, also taking the Dolphins.
One last thing, by the way. I'm kind of curious if the Colts are going to find any way at all of involving Anthony Richardson still.
Oh, yeah, I meant to mention that as well, yeah.
Short yardage, QB sneak quarterback, red zone quarterback, and specific like low red zone quarterback, 4th and goal from the 3. Do you have an Anthony Richardson play that you don't have for Danny Dimes, but like we're going to go old school wing T because we have Anthony Richardson at quarterback?
Plus that one formation that we saw that we can't talk about at camp.
Right.
From camp.
Stuff like
once
that.
we see it, I'll say we saw that at camp. But they had a formation that caught my eye.
We're good, honest media fellows.
We are.
That
I don't want to
get in the embargo and the old school.
I don't want the PR people to get mad at us for breaking rules.
We had that email from a guy that pointed out that I can't believe neither of us thought of. We have not brought up to the Bengals that I am a member of the Associated Press 50 voters. I have an Associated Press MVP vote. How am I not establishment enough to be in the building?
You're going to be sitting you're going to be sitting next to Paul Dehner by yourself. You're going to get a prime seat right next to Paul while I'm going to be on the outside.
I am Associated Press. It doesn't get any more.
Jeff Hobson's not voting in the AP.
It doesn't get. I don't think so. It doesn't get any more old school than that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, no. Maybe you should reach out.
You think Lapp has an AP vote? Dave Lapham?
Absolutely not.
Let him in the building.
We'll talk about that when we talk Bengals. They got a Thursday night game. We need to get in, and you're the key.
We need to send him that email and be like,
it needs to be stern too. As one of the 50 Associated Press
voters. It has come
voters.
to my attention.
Yeah. Are you turning down my podcast?
That you have been uncooperative to the Associated Press.
Yeah, and we're 10 minutes from the stadium. We're actually walking distance. We could walk to the stadium.
Yeah, from here.
Park here and walk.
Got to walk through some sketchy stuff, but you could walk.
Yeah, day games would be better than night games. Dolphins for me and Harry. You're taking the Colts. Pittsburgh Steelers at the New York Jets. Sunday at 1. Steelers favored by 2.5 here. Elijah Vera Tucker, by the way, out for the season.
Yeah.
For the New York Jets. This just happened yesterday or 2 days ago. The over-under is just 37.5 from FanDuel. Aaron Rodgers, revenge game against the Jets.
Yeah. I mean, obviously that part is fascinating. The Justin Fields at quarterback thing is always kind of interesting. He is a dynamic playmaker. Even if you don't think he's going to get any better as a quarterback, the dude can make special plays and turn, nothing into something. So, yeah, how that whole dynamic works. It's a real bummer for the Jets that they lost Vera Tucker. He's a good offensive lineman. The guy's got some rough injuries in his history, which is unfortunate because that line, could be good, could have been good. That's a big blow to lose one of those 5.
So we've talked up the Steelers' defense quite a bit.
Yes.
This offseason. Derek Harmon, the rookie first rounder, he's out. Don't know what's going to happen with Cameron Hayward. I think he snuck back into practice finally and should be out there. But the Steelers look loaded up front. You have that injury from the Jets. The Jets, as I've said before, they're interesting to me because, Fields has this way of kind of like shortening the game and just playing these close, tight games. He did a pretty nice job with Pittsburgh last year. Can they keep it close? I think the Jets have a chance to live in two extremes offensively, and I want to see if they play that game. Do they try to run the ball like crazy, lean into Justin Fields, the 1-2 punch of Breece Hall,
and disrespectful runs?
What's that? Like 3rd and 6, right? Braylon Allen as well. So they could have this 3-tiered running attack because they don't have the best pass catchers. and Fields is an inconsistent thrower.
And they've shown some inclination to those disrespectful runs in preseason. Like they have had plays of 3rd and 6 or whatever, obvious passing situations, and they've just been like, "Nah, we're running the ball," and either picking it up or running it because they think it's 2 down territory. Right, 3rd and 6 is we're going to run the ball on 3rd down. If we don't pick it up, we're going to run it again on 4th down. Get 2 shots to pick up 6 yards.
So I think that brings a little volatility, a little game-shortening ability of the Jets to keep games close, and then you just kind of see what happens. Win some turnover battles, convert those 4th downs. I think they have the chance to do that and make things be feisty. And then defensively, Sauce Gardner on the back end, freshly paid. Do they play as much man coverage as they did previously? That also gives you the chance to just get off the field on 3rd down, make things tough for the offense. So that matchup in particular, right? So the Jets' ability to play tight man coverage against the Steelers team that's DK Metcalf and question marks as far as the receivers go. So can they, Sauce Gardner versus DK, by the way, just as a straight head-up matchup, looks fantastic depending on how Sauce is deployed. By the way, Sauce has been mostly playing on one side, much like Richard Sherman through the years. Do they start moving him around? Do they start playing matchups? So
does he bounce back?
And how does he bounce back? Yeah, coming off his worst year.
Yeah, I mean, it was not a good year for Sauce Gardner. I think a lot of the criticism is a little bit overblown and almost as a sort of, finally is an opportunity to jump on him as a prospect or as a player. Does he bounce back after a relatively rough year? Does this defensive scheme play to his strengths more? And that's even if that's the reason he bounces back. So that whole thing is going to be interesting. The Jets run their propensity to run the ball and aggressiveness on 4th down. That might make this offense extremely difficult just to get off the field. Like if Aaron Glenn is looking at it in those terms, right? Sure, my quarterback might not be the most efficient guy in the world, but he's incredibly dynamic as a runner, and I'm willing to use all 4 downs almost all of the time, the way Dan Campbell did in Detroit. Like if that's the thing that he's taken from Dan Campbell, the Jets are going to be very difficult just to get off the field because 4th and 3, Justin Fields is one of those quarterbacks that is capable of taking any play and picking up 3 yards, right? Just because he's so freakishly athletic.
And I don't know what you want to do with this, but Fields, I believe, is 8-4 in his last 12 games, his team. Yeah. So the end of his run in Chicago, remember they had a bit of a run to the point where they were debating, do we actually pick Caleb Williams? Or at least people were debating, do we pick Caleb Williams or roll with Fields because we've turned it around?
It wasn't a slam dunk.
Right. And then they started 4-2 last year in Pittsburgh with Fields before he got benched for Russell Wilson. So for whatever that's worth, that's a data point that is most recent in Fields' career where, again, I believe the rushing value that he brings, much like a lot of the college games that you're watching this weekend, it's guys that are very inconsistent throwing the ball, but they do enough with their legs to add value and keep games close, and they can, even when it's ugly from a pass game perspective, you can win. And then anytime a 40-year-old quarterback goes out there, not that the cliff thing or the arm thing, I think a lot of that's overblown, but just want to see it, right? Want to see Aaron Rodgers' arm, want to see the first couple times he takes a hit, how he bounces back, and then the tackle situation for Pittsburgh as well. Protecting him.
Yeah, that's going to be, I think, a real thing to monitor. What does that tackle position look like for Pittsburgh, and how big
Jermaine Johnson's back, Will McDonald with his speed rush and his spin move against Broderick Jones, like that.
How big of
could
a problem,
get a couple wins there?
Yeah, how big of a problem is that going to be for the Steelers? Because that could genuinely undermine their entire season. So, with the retirement of the great Jason Peters, Aaron Rodgers is now the oldest player in the NFL, and therefore the closest player to our age in the NFL. So even though you might be able to personally relate to Matthew Stafford the closest because you're 2 old guys with a bad back, Aaron Rodgers is actually the closest thing to our age in the NFL right now.
Peters was our draft class, 04. Rodgers is 05. He's not in our draft class.
But he was young for that relative to Peters.
So he's.
So there's a few years.
Now he's still 3 years younger than my friend Rich Hill, who threw in a Major League Baseball game this year at the age of 45.
Yeah, but just go out there and throw something. It's not the same.
Oh yeah, it's a piece of cake. 45. All right, man. I'm really looking forward to this game. I think the Jets, I don't know what the final record is for the Jets. I don't know that it's great. But I feel like they could be just a team that's difficult to play. Then I'll cite the thing I say every year as well. There's no line that's the biggest line this week is 8.5.
Yeah.
Right.
Weird stuff happens.
In every year, it's like, oh, it's the league, parity, and there's not a lot of big in 3 weeks. A bunch of these teams look awful, and there's going to be 12-point spreads and 13-point spreads.
It's not an indication of parity; it's an indication of uncertainty.
Uncertainty, absolutely. And the Jets have some uncertainty to their game right now.
Both teams do. Yeah, I mean, look, there are weird stuff happens in week one all the time, just independent of anything else, and we don't really know these teams yet. We think we do. We can look at them on paper and you can project what they're going to be, but ultimately, I mean, every year you're surprised by teams that come out of nowhere, by teams that you thought would be good that aren't. Like, week 6 in the NFL looks very different from week 1 in the NFL, even with very little changing in terms of injuries or whatever. So, yeah, it's another game with a lot of unknowns that's going to be fun.
All right, make a pick, man. Steelers by 2.5 with the over-under, just 37.5.
I'm going with the Jets. I think that people are being a little too negative on the Jets. I actually think they're going to be a very difficult team to just beat because of, again,
all the factors we've cited for months now.
And hopefully this was a real thing, that Aaron Glenn is going to be that kind of Dan Campbell level of crazy aggressive. And I use crazy advisedly, like it's a little unhinged. But I think it's good. If he is willing to do that with a guy like Justin Fields, like Dan Campbell was willing to do it with Jared Goff, who brings nothing in terms of like rushing threat that can offset a numerical disadvantage. Justin Fields, you can go for it in weird situations, and even if you get the play call wrong, he might be able to turn it into a positive play, keep you on the field, and buy you a new set of downs. That is going to make them very hard to beat.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me. Jets getting points after I've said they're going to play a tough brand of football that'll keep it close. I'll take the Steelers, though, going with my offseason hype that they have a chance to have one of the best defenses in the league. Don't forget, Jalen Ramsey there, and there's a lot to like about Pittsburgh's defense. Harry's also going to take the Steelers here by the 2.5. Tampa Bay Bucks at the Atlanta Falcons. Also Sunday at 1 o'clock. Bucks favored by 1.5 here in the Dome, over under 47.5 from our friends over at FanDuel.
Nice.
Discuss.
Big division matchup right away. Your least favorite thing.
Division matchups right off the bat. I'll say this quickly. The Sean McVay, sometimes you just have coordinator matchups or scheme matchups. Sean McVay derivatives have done a really nice job against Todd Bowles' defenses. This was the matchup where Kirk threw for 500 last year.
Yeah. Todd Bowles' defense does feel like it's not quite, gone the way of the old school cover 3 Pete Carroll. I mean, Pete Carroll's still around doing well, but like the Pete Carroll tree of coaching defenses that was for a while the meta defense in the NFL, and then quite quickly got exposed as actually you need more than this. Bowles' defense hasn't gone that way, but I think it is the type of defense that several offensive schemes have an answer to now. And if you don't kind of get lucky, and dial up the blitz at the right time and just get just the right play here or there, I kind of feel like he's going to lose those matchups.
Yeah, so going back to when the Rams play against the Bucs, look, it's not every time. It doesn't mean every single
just
time
overall,
there's a matchup.
It's a broad brush strokes generalization.
If we're talking about the Jets bringing their aggressiveness that we were talking about was maybe fourth downs, which, by the way, Raheem Morris did a really nice job of with the Falcons last year. I think they won a couple games specifically because of that. There's a different level of aggressiveness that Atlanta is bringing to the table with Michael Penix Jr. in his handful of starts. We saw him driving the ball down the field, attacking down the field far more than they had earlier in the year. So what does that look like for a full season? What does a full season of Drake London with Michael Penix Jr. look like? They've had Darnell Mooney's missed the majority of training camp here. That's a bit of a question. The right tackle spot is a question here for Atlanta. But the Bucs have questions of their own with, no Chris Godwin, no Tristan Wirfs. So there's a couple injuries on both sides. I think we could see an explosive passing attack here. Last time we saw Atlanta, it was a shootout between Michael Penix Jr. and Bryce Young. Might see some of that in this game, Baker against Penix.
I'm just so excited to see this Michael Penix Jr., Zach Robinson offense, in full flow, the way it was supposed to operate. This is the first look, really, that we're going to get of what Zach wants his offense to look like, right? We saw last year the offense that Zach had to create based off the limitations of Kirk Cousins physically at 35 years old coming off an Achilles injury. And it turned out, whatever we thought about that going into the season, it was a much bigger problem than people thought it was, right? Cousins could still throw the ball, but there were times where he couldn't, drive off a given leg, certainly couldn't move around very well. So suddenly you've got to take whatever your playbook is, this thick, and you got to dump a giant section of it as we can't run these. And people were writing like think pieces about, why is this offense not operating from the pistol or under center or whatever in the first few weeks? And it's because there's a whole bunch of stuff they can't run. Everything's back on the table now with Michael Penix Jr. And in fact, some more things that were never on the table for Kirk Cousins. Zach said on our show, but he said in public as well, this is a guy that runs a 4.4. Obviously, we're not going to run QB power up the middle with a guy that we're relying on that much and with his injury history. But what if we give him a keeper here or there, right? Into unblocked or unoccupied space where he can pick up 15 yards before he has to slide and protect himself. This was something that was never even considered for Kirk Cousins, but is suddenly on the table. And in the limited snaps we saw from him last year, Michael Penix was the most aggressive quarterback in all of football. So those things all being put together will make this extremely exciting to watch for the first few weeks.
Yeah, I think the Bucs are the better overall team. I think they've got better, probably starting 22 top to bottom. The Falcons just have some volatility to them, right? Some high-end potential, I think, with Penix, the pass game, and I can't wait to see what the young pass rushers look like. Jalen Walker is technically questionable as of record time here on Thursday, as is Darnell Mooney, by the way, the second option opposite London, which could be a question for Atlanta. But what does the pass rush look like? Terry Fontenot has given us two of the best case studies, as I've said, in the draft the last couple of years, going to get Penix, going to get these two pass rushers, not just one. Let's fill a need with two first-round pass rushers, Jalen Walker and James Pierce. Pierce, I thought, looked pretty good in the preseason. Got to be a little bit more disciplined in his rushes, finish plays, but much like at Tennessee. But I think that guy can win one-on-one. I want to see how Jalen Walker is deployed here and his ability to get after the quarterback if he's healthy. The left tackle situation for the Bucs, right? They don't have Tristan Wirfs for the first 3 or 4 weeks here. And then, the Bucs passing game with Baker Mayfield, who I think, coming off a couple really good seasons here, I think the big question for him is consistently, week in, week out, taking care of the ball. But he has a chance to, put up big numbers this year with that passing attack. Emeka Egbuka, all of his preseason hype and what we saw from him, complementing Mike Evans. I think they have a chance to really move the ball well through the air in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I think that'll be a fun offense. I'm a little concerned by the left tackle spot and how big of a problem, that will be for a while until Tristan Wirfs gets back. Again, sometimes it feels harsh sort of going deep into Baker Mayfield's career, but, we all remember when he had a bad left tackle back in the day, it became Baker Mayfield played into that and it magnified the problem, right? When Greg Robinson was his left tackle, that's a problem in and of itself, but Baker Mayfield also poured gas on the fire and made it into an even bigger problem by being terrified of his left tackle. I'm now expecting pressure in every play. How long does it take for that to happen again in Tampa Bay if that's the way it starts to go? Does it take longer in the game? Does it immediately revert back? Has he evolved beyond that? Is Baker just a different player now? And actually he's able to deal with that in a way he wasn't earlier in his career. So that's definitely something to monitor on that side. But overall, this offense should be pretty good.
By the way, Atlanta's down to, I don't want to say third or fourth string right tackle, but I think right after Caleb McGarry was out for the season, they didn't have great options. Generally. Storm Norton, it's Elijah Wilkinson starting at right tackle. He's been a below average tackle for the majority of his career as a sixth or seventh offensive lineman. So it's a big question for Atlanta too, and it's right tackle. If you think the blind side matters more for quarterbacks, then you could say that as well. So I think it's a fun division matchup to kick things off. I think there's a chance. The over/under being set 47.5 says indoor game, big time offensive potential. I think Vegas is expecting a lot of points here. Where are you going with this one? Bucs by 1.5 here.
I'm going to go with the Falcons, week 1. Let's see this offense. Let's go.
Yeah, I'll also take the Falcons. Harry's, my 10-year-old son, for people asking again, taking the Bucs. And Harry's got a better track record than me, so
he does.
Take it for what it's worth.
Now, that first year, everybody had a better track record than you.
Yeah,
but
whatever. You don't have to bring it up. Stop living in the past.
I think it's important. People.
We're looking forward.
It's like the way the people that peddle gambling picks. Tail me. You got to show your You got to show your track record. I think it's important to tell the people, anyone thinking of, following Steve's picks here. 2 years ago, you had
I've got
literally the worst picks of anybody that
nobody wants to hear it. Nobody cares
in the world.
Nobody cares. But a quick break to talk about our friends over at Root Insurance. Root Insurance believes that good drivers deserve better rates. So they've created a new kind of car insurance that rewards good drivers in an easy-to-use app. Traditional car insurance companies focus on demographics like age, zip code, occupation, and credit score to price your coverage. When Root offers a rate, your behavior behind the wheel gets more weight than any other single factor. They don't use occupation or education level to negatively affect your rate. While you drive, Root gathers and analyzes data from your smartphone's sensors, so after a few weeks, you'll get a car insurance quote based primarily on your driving. Save up to 44% off your initial Root quote after you take the test drive. If you need a tow truck jump start, or if you lock your keys in your car, Root will cover the help you need to get back on the road when you opt into roadside assistance, and the Root app makes it easy to edit your coverage, update your policy, or file a claim in just 3 minutes. You can get started today at root.com. Are we halfway through here?
Yeah.
This is amazing. New York Giants at the Washington Commanders. Division matchup. Right off the bat, Commanders by 5.5 here, over under 45.5 per FanDuel. Giants, Commanders. Week 1, man. What are we looking for?
So these are two teams that feel like they could be moving in opposite directions relative to expectations. So on the one hand, you got Washington, who made it to the NFC Championship game off the back of spectacular play from their almost unanimous Rookie of the Year quarterback in Jaden Daniels. People expect them to be great again because of that, right? It's the natural progression of things. You get better year on year from the beginning. So they go make big splashes. Laramie Tunsil, left tackle. You bring in Deebo Samuel, wide receiver. You finally re-sign Terry McLaurin and keep that on the rails. However, there's a lot of things on this team that kind of scream regression, and maybe they won't be as good as people are expecting them to be. Meanwhile, the Giants, it's like, well, Russell Wilson is your starting quarterback, so how can you feel good about that? And yet actually, forget Jackson Dart, who may be the future and may be really good in his own right. I kind of feel like Russell Wilson might be better than people are expecting him to be. And within this offense that has, Malik Neighbors and Brian Daboll at coach, like the Giants might be sneakily better than people are expecting them to be. So if Washington is worse and the Giants are better, does that meet in the middle in week 1? And this was actually a much closer game than people are expecting it to be?
Yeah, 5.5, that's fine. I mean, I do think the Giants, they played in week 2 last year for whatever it's worth, just so you remember how much teams change throughout the season. The Commanders won 21-18, I believe. So they kicked 7 field goals in that game. Washington didn't even punt in that game, kicked 7 field goals. I don't think the Giants was all field goals. That would have been crazy. But it wasn't like they completely dominated, right? The Commanders got blown out in week 1. Then they, 7 field goals in week 2, and then they had their real coming out party against Cincinnati on Monday Night Football. That's how the Commanders' flow went last year, and they won a lot of close games. So I know because we've repeated it so many times, the idea of regression candidates and this and that, but they still added Laramie Tunsil on that offensive line. Mm-hmm. They added Deebo Samuel, so they did make moves, I think, to get better. I worry about Washington's defensive line.
Yep.
And in this league where we just saw the Eagles 4-man rush it all the way to the Super Bowl against the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, the Giants and their 4-man rush, I can't wait to see that unleashed. Their pass rush against this Washington offensive line, which added Tunsil, but still, some questions there, protecting Daniels. So I think it's a fun matchup. I think it'll be a good one. And you're right, Russell Wilson, I don't think he's going to lead a team to a Super Bowl at this point in his career, but he's still capable of having good games like he did with Pittsburgh last year.
He still has a really good deep ball. I mean, this is a thing this is important, right? Russell Wilson may have lost his ability to down in and down out, be, a top 10 quarterback in the NFL and be hyper efficient and be very good, but he can still be explosive in a way that, and when you have Malik Neighbors at the other end of that, I mean, Malik Neighbors can be on the end of a lot of Russell Wilson moonballs. And if each one of those is a monster play, that will buy you an awful lot of wiggle room in terms of not efficient. He's also, maybe he's not as dynamic as he was early in his career, but he's still athletic enough to pick up some first downs. I don't expect Russell Wilson to be great. I do think he might not suck, though. And if he doesn't suck, and you've got Malik Neighbors and all these talented playmakers that they had a year ago, take a year forward in their development, like last year's rookie class, if they all get progressively better in year 2, I think the Giants could be better than people think.
No, I agree. And some other night, Paulson and Debo coming in, they made some nice defensive additions on the back end. And then just what does that defensive front look like? Brian Burns, who had an excellent year last year rushing the passer, despite my questions about him being worth $28 million. By the way, there's a big edge rush deal that we know. Well, you want to just wait till the Broncos game.
By the way, $20 million a year. Like Mike Parsons is now at
28.
28 for Burns.
Yeah.
Michael Parsons is now at 47. Like in the space of 12 months, that's gone from that's kind of a lot for an edge rusher to it's barely functional money. Like it's cheap.
Moral of the story, just pay the money.
Always.
It'll all look, less.
It'll all work out in inflation.
It'll all be fine.
Just keep going.
Inflation will make you look sharp in 2 years. But Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, and Abdul Carter, and Dexter Lawrence, right? That group, they have a chance to completely change games. So I want to see how they're deployed and just how effective they are in their various roles. Abdul Carter, much like we said with Micah Parsons, not just because they're number 11 from Penn State.
Yeah.
Carter was a linebacker to edge conversion, and it happened quickly and effectively. So
Carter's
their ability to move those guys around and create mismatches is a huge part of we're going to mention it for the next 18 weeks for the Giants. That's a huge part of all of their games now.
Carter is definitely one of the most one of the rookies that I'm most eager to watch because not just because he can be good, but because he at least has flashed already the ability to be immediate special impact type of player. He looks like he could have the kind of impact that Jared Verse had a year ago, where it's different with him. All of a sudden, they have one of those guys next to one of those guys. Obviously Dexter Lawrence, arguably the best defensive player in the game. I'm not saying he's going to be that, but if he provides problems in addition to a guy like Dexter Lawrence, they haven't really had that. Kayvon Thibodeau was supposed to bring that. Brian Burns was supposed to bring that. Burns is good. He's not that. He's not that difference-making type of good. If Carter is able to do that quickly, this defensive front is a problem.
On Washington's side, they put out a depth chart that had Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt as
Bill
as the fourth running back. I don't know how much that actually matters, but
not much,
the playmakers that they have there, Terry McLaurin back as a great vertical threat, win at all the levels of the field, really. Deebo Samuel being added. How do they use Deebo? Is he just a traditional receiver? Are they going to use him in the run game a little bit? Cliff Kingsbury, I thought, had a really nice season last year as the play caller, as he and Jaden Daniels grew together. And then as the season went on, Daniels, his ability in the design run game, his ability as a scrambler, his ability to just not turn the ball over, find completions. Jaden Daniels was extremely efficient. And, what does his year two progression look like? Because, look, no matter what I say about Washington's roster, I'd say, hey, I don't love their defensive line. And, maybe Marshawn Lattimore's lost a step at corner. For every hole that they have on paper, Jaden Daniels has a chance to cover all of that up if he just plays at a similar level as last year, and especially if he takes another step forward in year two.
Yeah, just can he avoid, a sophomore slump? I do think there's something to that as a concept in terms of it can take a while for NFL defenses to get a handle on a new player, right? And particularly a new player that's exceptionally talented, because by definition, those guys are causing you problems that you don't necessarily experience with some other players. So a huge part of NFL success long-term is forget hitting the ground running. It's what happens when the first pushback comes. What happens when the first wave of defenses finding some answers hits? Have you figured out a counter to that? Can you then take your game to the next step and evolve beyond that? And that's where guys like, Mahomes, Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar, all those guys have evolved their game since they first hit the ground running, and they remain the best quarterbacks in the NFL. That's now going to be the challenge facing a guy like Jaden Daniels. You were spectacular year one. Defenses are going to hit you with some things this year that they didn't last year. Have you still got answers to that, and can you still keep progressing in the right direction?
By the way, Giants offensive line, still a question mark. Andrew Thomas, touch and go, whether or not he's going to be able to play at left tackle, even if he's out there. That's the one thing that, once again, could derail the Giants. I don't think they're as bad as they were 3 years ago up front, but still has bottom of the half of the league potential there.
Are we getting the debut of Scadaboo in the backfield? Just
I hope so.
Wrecking ball, Tasmanian devil maniac.
I sure hope so. I just hope he full Scadaboo.
Yes,
it's gonna be tough to bet against
full Scadaboo.
All right, 5.5. Where are you going with this one? Commanders by 5.5, over under 45.5 from FanDuel.
I'm going with the Giants for the logic I illustrated at the start. I feel like both teams are slightly mispriced in opposite directions, and I think that means that this is a closer game than people are billing it as.
I will also take the Giants for all the reasons we laid out, and Harry's taking the Commanders, and he's probably going to win.
This is a classic overreaction Monday, though. Like, if Washington stomps the Giants, then I'm like, everything I thought of it, it's all wrong.
Yeah.
Washington are actually going to go and make the Super Bowl this year. The Giants suck. Forget it. Like, this is a classic Monday.
I won't even remember the offseason on Monday morning. I will not even remember anything I said for 6 months.
Yeah.
Come Monday morning.
Overreaction Monday.
I can't wait. We're going to be here for 4.
That's what, I mean,
I can't wait for a 4-hour show.
McAfee has that every week, right? We just have it week 1 in the NFL.
I cannot wait for 4 hours Monday morning. It's going to be great. Cincinnati Bengals at the Cleveland Browns Sunday at 1. Bengals favored by 5.5 here.
So my big thing here is, do the Bengals actually come out hot in a way they haven't for years? Right? Their off-season focus.
Right. It's like the biggest question here. Because if you watched our preview show, sorry to interrupt, but if you watched our preview show last year, we're like, of course the Bengals are going to kill the Patriots week 1.
Yeah. And for years they've started slow. And honestly, I don't know that it's necessarily been a huge problem for most of the time, but last year it clearly was, right?
Yeah.
Last year it was literally the difference between them making the playoffs and not. You know, it's one, if you're a genuine Super Bowl contending team, by which I mean both sides of the ball are pretty useful, it probably doesn't matter if you start slow or not. You know, I think the Chiefs could drop a couple of games in the first month and it wouldn't be a problem. People would act like it was a problem. You know, they'd be out there in the shouty shows being like, the Chiefs, it's all...
Dynasty's dead.
Right.
It's
Meanwhile,
over.
Nick Wright would be consistently saying, nah, forget it. They're just, they're mailing in September. It doesn't matter. And I think he'd be right in this instance. It wouldn't be a big deal. For Cincinnati, though, last year the defense was so bad that they actually didn't have that kind of margin for error. And this year might be the same thing. And more to the point, this year, I think for maybe the first time, they really care about it. Like their entire offseason approach has changed. They want to hit the ground running this year because they saw how big a problem it can be last year. So does this offense, the offense, which has actually played preseason football for the first time in a while, and every time they went out there, they looked ready to go.
I don't know if that's because they didn't have joint practices for the first time in years.
Right, maybe.
But they let Joe Burrow actually play football
right.
in a game for the first time.
And
really
that
ever.
generally has been a thing it's moving back in that direction league-wide, right? For a while, the Sean McVay approach of nobody of consequence plays in preseason football. It's a joke. We're not risking it. Everyone was moving in that direction for a few years, and now I think you're seeing it start to move back in the opposite direction again, and actually teams want their starters to get out there and at least warm up, right?
Remember when we were on VSiN a few weeks ago at Circa?
Yes.
Co-host on VSiN. We were a guest on a show for 2 segments, and I don't want to do his research in injustice here, but he pretty much was looking it up and saying if a quarterback played in the preseason versus not playing at all, week 1, it had an effect. So
correct.
QBs that played, they were more in line with their expectations in week 1. QBs that didn't play were like 2 points off, expectation or whatever it was.
Low. The production was low. It was rusty. Exactly all the narratives you expect. So for Burrow and this offense to have gone out there in preseason, to have looked sharp, if they still don't hit the ground running in the first game, I don't know what to do. But if they do, you might be looking at a Bengals team that is able to play, even if the defense is garbage, they can play all the way through the season the way they played for most of last year, which is an offense that looks as good as any in the NFL. And then the question is, on a week-to-week basis, like, can the defense just do just enough that we can win the game?
Now, we've spent all offseason also saying the Bengals' defense probably won't be as bad. Or there's a really good chance that they're not as bad as they were.
It would be hard to be as bad, but they somehow might still achieve it.
I don't think they were completely devoid of talent last year.
No.
They had some talent deficiencies opposite Trey Hendrickson rushing the passer, and they had some injuries in the secondary.
Right.
I think safety's been a multi-year issue really since Jesse Bates left. So those are real things that Cincinnati had, but that wasn't worst defense in the league type of on-paper unit there. So having Al Golden come in, Hendrickson's coming back. I can't wait to see how they deploy Shamar Stewart. They've been trying to move him up and down the line of scrimmage. I don't think he's polished enough to make a massive impact, but he can make a wrecking ball type of impact. Like, hey, go be fast and powerful and blow some stuff up and set other people up.
And against a lot of players and teams, that will work. That will have some production.
Yeah,
I mean,
but just having DJ Turner back off of injury, Cam Taylor-Britt, Dax Hill in the secondary, I think should help for Cincinnati. Plus a new scheme. However, in the preseason, they were awful.
Yes,
I mean they were not. And it was fundamental type stuff. I kept saying they were out-gapped. I mean, every time a runner broke through the line, it's like there's not a Bengal within yards here. It feels like they're playing with a man down. So it was bad, but it was preseason. Like, I don't know what to do with that. So
it's also, theoretically, that's the stuff that should be fixable, right? Like, just assignment football should be the easiest thing to get right. Like, there were seasons where Bill Belichick's defense in the first couple of weeks were like blowing, plays left and right, miscommunications, just, bad coverage busts, et cetera, and then they fixed those things and the defense became good. Like, theoretically, that should be, even if, maybe not week one, right? Maybe it'll take a while, but like we should be able to get that straight, and then we're just dealing with the talent problems.
Browns, I think they feel like they're mostly in a rebuild, but they have Joe Flacco at quarterback. The offensive line has potential, but they're older. Like, if they're healthy, they could be pretty good, but they all feel like they're on the downswing of their career, at least 4 out of 5 of them. So some questions there for Cleveland.
Yeah, I like, but they have Joe Flacco at quarterback.
Like,
I would say
the roster's rebuilding.
Yeah.
But they have an older quarterback.
Yeah, they're in a rebuild. Joe Flacco is their quarterback. These are all in the same bucket of problematic.
I want to see what their rookies look like. Mason Graham, I thought, underwhelmed in the very limited preseason time that we saw from him. Carson Schwessinger looked really good at linebacker. I want to see what the youth movement looks like.
Dylan Sampson, didn't see much preseason action, but I think in part because he's been sort of reserved for the regular season. Like, they're not actually exposing him to too much preseason because I think they have a reasonably large role planned for him. Harold Fannin looks like he's going to be a part of this offense as well. Obviously, he won't be tight end one because that's David Njoku, but it looks like they're going to get them both on the field, significant amount. So there's a lot of young players that they do seem to have big roles pegged for.
All right, man, let's make a pick here. Bengals by 5.5. It wasn't just last year where they laid an egg week 1. This is a multi-year issue. In their Super Bowl year, in the year after, they started 0-2. And last year, as you mentioned, we were sitting there in week 3 saying, they usually come out of it. It took them a month and a half to really come out of it. Does it work this year, the offseason focus? Week 1, 5.5, they're favored in Cleveland. Yeah,
they have started at least 0-2. They haven't been above 500 after 2 weeks since at least 2019.
And look, they were a fourth down 18. Penalty.
Like, before, this predates Joe Burrow. 2018 was the last time they won their first 2 games.
Wow. And they're close.
And in most of those years, by the way, I think all but one of those years, they've lost their first 2. It's only one that they were 500 after 2 weeks.
Is this the year where it all changes? Bengals by 5.5 in Cleveland.
I believe at least this week it does. I think the Bengals will win, hit the ground running, and even if the defense stinks, I think the offense will cook the Cleveland Browns defense. And for 1 week at least,
I'm doing it again. Picking the Bengals.
Again, another classic. Monday, we'll be like, same old Bengals.
Same Bengals.
Can't start fast. Write them off for another week.
The offense looked completely different in week 1 last year. They weren't even trying to throw the ball.
Well, last week,
everything was different. Yeah. I think they're going to – like Kansas City's going to come out swinging. Right. I think the Bengals come out swinging.
Last year, against the Patriots was so shocking that the thing we overreacted to was actually – maybe the Patriots don't suck.
Yeah.
Maybe we thought the Patriots were going to be terrible, but actually, look, they held this Cincinnati offense that we were expecting to be great.
Gerard Mayo, secret genius this whole time.
They held them to, not
Robert
many
Kraft
points, etc. Maybe the Patriots are better than we think. And actually, it turned out, no, the Patriots did, in fact, suck. It's just that the Bengals...
Robert Kraft has his next Belichick, defensive-minded
The Bengals just didn't show up that week.
I'll take the Bengals, as will Harry. And
I believe
I might even double down and for the second straight year make them my week 1 survivor pick.
I was going to say, I believe that I made the Bengals my week 1 survivor
I haven't
pick.
made the selection yet, but I might do it.
So I hate that I'm pegging my week 1 survivor pool to a team that is, as I said, a 6-year history.
You might want them later in the year, though. There's a strategic.
No, I'm not. I'm week 1. My week 1 survivor strategy is what is the game I am singularly most confident in, and it's this game.
Just get to survive.
Even though the Bengals have this history now of 6, 7,
Survive
whatever
in
years
advance.
of not playing well, I'm like, this is the game that I am the most confident in of all of them.
All right, let's go. Las Vegas Raiders at the New England Patriots. Sunday at 1. Patriots favored by 2.5 here. Mike Vrabel, his Patriots debut as head coach. Pete Carroll, his Raiders debut as head coach. This is a fun one for week 1.
Yeah. Disrespect to the Raiders. You know?
You think so?
Geno Smith, Pete Carroll.
It's home field advantage. I mean, it's a push. Neutral site push.
I think
if they were playing in Brazil.
Disrespect.
If they were playing in Arrowhead, it'd be a push.
Yeah.
Just thinking of neutral site games. If they were playing in Mercedes-Benz or in the Super Bowl, it'd be neutral. Where are you going? Not even where you're going, but what are we looking for? There's a lot of fun storylines in this. It's going to sneaky one of the best games. This is going to be one of the best games this week.
One of the best games.
Raiders, Patriots.
I mean, look, Drake May is obviously going to be a fascinating watch. I had I talked about this on the panel that I was doing in Circa Sports. Like, Drake May right now is a really fascinating case study for like how projections and data and all those kinds of things work in the NFL. Because last year, everything around him was bad. And it was so bad, in fact, that when he got the job, I was like, I think this is a mistake because it could be damaging to him. It was so bad that having him out there might be making him worse long term. It might be detrimental to his future. So we know that if you have a bad receiving core and a bad offensive line and bad coaching or a bad scheme, all those things should you should project a little boost in the quarterback if you remove those as problems, right? So if we change the receiving core and suddenly it's average, and we change the offensive line, it's average, each one you're like boosting the projection a little bit, right? But what I think we don't have a good handle on is how much. So when we look back at last year, Drake May was surprisingly good given the circumstances. It was a bad situation, and yet he looked pretty good, and then every now and again, he would make a clanging decision, right? Like a boneheaded play, awful turnover, whatever. So we're projecting him to be way better this year because the receiving core looks better, the offensive line theoretically looks better, and we hope the scheme will be better. What we don't know is, does that take away the boneheaded play every game? Or is that just part of who Drake May is, and no projecting him better is going to remove that part from his game? That, I think, will be really interesting to watch. He should be better, but does he change that element of him?
I also think the key is going to be all the plays in between, right? Even if, much like we talked about with Cam Ward, even if there are some bad turnover-worthy type plays in there, or interceptable even, if you want to use that awful terminology. Everything else in between, having more open receivers to throw to, having more plays where the offensive line isn't collapsing. And I don't know that that's necessarily set in stone, right? The offensive line is one of the questions that we're keeping an eye on here. I'm looking at the Stephon Diggs matchup, though, against a questionable secondary for the Raiders. I think there's a lot to like about the Raiders. Might actually pick them in this game in a minute here. I think Geno Smith's going to make them extremely competitive. Mm-hmm. He's got a couple guys to throw to. We'll see how the rookies really impact things, Ashton Genty and Dante Thornton, right? The Raiders secondary gives me the concerns. I think John Spytek's going to do a pretty good job there as the general manager. And I think their draft has high-end potential. They're still in transition, right? So they got some really nice pieces to be competitive. I worry about the back seven and their ability to cover. I think Stephon Diggs has a chance to go off here, and I think May is going to rely on him heavily. I think we're seeing a 15 target game for Stephon Diggs in this one.
Yeah, it could be. I'm really excited to see Ashton Genty play football. I had a tweet that kind of went mini viral during the week where there was a clip of Trent Richardson that was just out there. And I was like, there's a small part of me that still doesn't really understand why Trent Richardson sucked in the NFL. And a lot of people retweeted that. Multiple people have compared Trent Richardson to Ashton Genty. And I can kind of see it I get...
Because we're a few carries in.
There's a quick glance resemblance that I get, right? Like short, squat, very twitchy, jinky type of running back. Like you can, at a very quick glance, I understand why you would immediately compare the two guys. But I do think they're very different players. But because preseason was a little bit like, just a tiny bit of concern right now that Ashton Genty might not be the dominant force that we all thought he would be.
He trucked the dude, but he didn't really... What was Trent Richardson's issue? He would make somebody miss, but then kind of like being quick. So
he would make
his
people
missed
miss.
tackles forced number was strong.
Trent Richardson,
but it went to nowhere. It
right.
was very Najee Harris-like.
Trent Richardson would make 4 people miss on his way to bouncing to the perimeter and gaining a yard and a half.
Yeah, that was
every play. He would also, I
don't think Genty's that.
No, and Trent Richardson, like, there's that classic, look, still images are often manipulated and don't actually reflect the reality of the play, right? But there is that damning image of, like, a Raiders offensive line with a massive bodies here and a small section of bodies here and a giant open space here, and Trent Richardson, like, not looking at the space, but instead running right up the gap of
do not
hell.
use that one screenshot that went viral a decade ago was power, where you do not cut back on power against the leverage of the defense. Don't give that guy any credibility.
But that specific frame did highlight a Trent Richardson problem, which is I don't think he had particularly good vision.
And just to be clear, you're highlighting that people out there are overrating a couple preseason carries.
Yeah,
saying this.
I'm just
You're
saying,
not saying it.
No. Between people comparing Ashton Genty and Trent Richardson, and then preseason giving you just enough to be like, before I was 100% bulletproof confident that that Ashton Genty will be a very good NFL player. Now, there's at least like a 2% in there from the preseason that's like, maybe actually he's not going to be that great. So what I'm saying is I would like this game to remove that 2% again and me go back to being 100% confident that Ashton Genty will be a star.
Other matchups to watch here. So the new Patriots offensive line that we mentioned, Morgan Moses coming in. He'll have to block Max Crosby the majority of the time.
Would you, as
yes,
as a defensive mind?
Yes.
Would you go out there and say
Tyree Wilson?
This is Will Campbell's first at bat. Tyree Wilson. The only thing you're bringing to the table right now is length.
I was about to get
deploy your length.
I was about to get there.
Fully deploy your length, and every play just long arm Will Campbell and see if little T-Rex over there can deal with it.
And it's not the only thing that Campbell struggled with. I think he had a good preseason. I think I saw the PFF Twitter account putting out his pass blocking grade or whatever it was. But when you watch who Will Campbell faced in the preseason,
by the way,
the same week he was having some rough reps against Vikings starters in joint practices. He was going up against, I love Gabe Murphy, but that's like the type of rusher with short arms that Will Campbell should handle.
Max Crosby typically does not move around, but Max Crosby has a stupidly long wingspan as well. Max Crosby's wingspan, I think, is 7-8 inches longer than Will Campbell's.
If I was on defense, I mean, it's in my notes here. I said it probably in May. When the schedule came out, I was looking at who are the length players Will Campbell might have to face, because we sat here all draft season talking about this thing. So Tyree Wilson has done some damage, I think, rushing from the interior.
Yeah.
With Malcolm Kuntz rushing outside him. I would love to see what Tyree Wilson can do. I don't think he's a great player or a great pass rusher, but he might have the Campbell kryptonite. I want to see that. Greg Rousseau in week 5. I mean, I'm going to say it every week. Let's see.
Rousseau's like an obvious, that's just a natural matchup that's going to come down the pipe. This is one, though, where if you're a defensive coach, I might specifically engineer this matchup because it's an obvious mismatch. Google has helpfully summed this up for me. Max Crosby has an 81-inch wingspan. I think, wasn't Will Campbell 74 or something? 77? Okay, so it's a 4-inch advantage in Max Crosby's favor. Anyway, 81-inch wingspan, a measurement that earned him the nickname the Condor, which I've never heard before, but okay. Point is,
challenge it, man. Just
Condor versus T-Rex is a mismatch that I would try and take advantage of.
Yeah, so there's some fun matchups here. I want to see how New England's how their offensive line holds up. I think the Raiders could have some success rushing the passer. I think the Raiders are weak in the secondary, and they've got some questions at corner. And I could see Stephon Diggs in particular being a high-volume player this week. Also want to see Travion Henderson, had that great preseason. How did they deploy him? They put him third on the depth chart for whatever that's worth, I think, right? If any of that stuff matters. But I could see them going to him early and often, particularly in the pass game.
And Kyle Williams as well.
Yes.
So those two rookies that look to bring explosiveness and dynamism to the table to this offense, can they both be factors right away?
All right, let's make a pick. Patriots by 2.5 here.
I'm going with the Raiders.
I'm also taking the Raiders. Harry takes the Patriots, and I think he might be taking the Patriots in Survivor.
Oh.
He's that confident
in
New England here for some reason. Harry's gone rogue here. compared to us a couple times.
How long did he last in the Survivor last year? I was only tracking.
I think we all took the Bengals week 1.
I didn't. I was through to like week 12 or something, and then accidentally forgot to set a lineup. That's how I cracked out.
You did a good job. Harry and I both maybe lasted a week, so we'll see how this goes.
A lot of people. I mean, the Circa Survivor thing, like half the field went out in the week 1 Bengals
Week
game.
1 is you never know. You just never know. Arizona Cardinals at the New Orleans Saints. Cardinals by 6.5 here in Nolans. Spencer Rattler named starter for the Saints here.
Yep.
And some fun stories here as well. Cardinals, a lot of people like them as the sneaky pick in the NFC West this year.
Yeah.
I don't even think it's that sneaky. They're just where they are.
I think that division is wide open. Any of the 4 teams could potentially win that division. The Cardinals are the team that's interesting here, in my opinion. Like, defense will be fun. They finally added talent to what's been a very well-coached group overall. So does that translate the way you think it should? You know, does the talent plus a good scheme equal like a really good defense? And then offense, can Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. get on the same page? That's the only thing I care about in this offense. Can they complete a back shoulder fade that looks like they were both aware it was supposed to happen? Plus, what does the Marvin Harrison workout plan actually produce? I'm kind of fascinated by that now.
Yes.
The man is jacked to the gills. What does that do for him?
I want to see this Cardinals defense. I want to see, because last year, how many times did we cite their defensive line being the second string for an average NFL team? Now they are.
Yeah.
And not just that, the way they had to deploy their players, right? I think Zaven Collins, who started his career as a linebacker and moved more to the edge, I think he's a very good, solid, all-around player. They were deploying him, trying to create matchups for him. They were trying to create matchups for inside linebacker Mac Wilson. They were switching them to just create mismatches. And now, theoretically, they have the horses to get after. They invested in Josh Sweat. They have just more pieces up front to maybe win those one-on-ones. And so how does Jonathan Gannon, how does that entire defense look? They were running 3 safety looks, Budda Baker flying around all over the place. I mean, it was a unique defense, maybe out of necessity, right? Because of the lack of talent there. So all last season, really the last 2 years, Arizona had certainly one of the worst defenses. 2 years ago, Kyler Murray was hurt for the majority of the year. They were the worst on-paper team in the NFL. And they just remember they upset the Cowboys. They just snuck up. Every few weeks, they would play these tough games. And now they have more talent, right? So we kept saying, when they have more talent, what does it look like? What does it look like? Well, now they do. And so I think Arizona has a chance to have a really good season, and I think they should have their way with the Saints, who are expected to be the worst team in the NFL.
Do you think there will be an emotional hangover, though, from the departure of the Barbarian, the spiritual leader of this defense?
Oh, we didn't even – I took the Jags, right? Yeah. The Barbarian being a Jag.
Dennis the Barbarian Gardeck is no longer in the building.
Be the best pass rusher in Jacksonville since Tony Brackett. You never know. Yes, losing the Barbarian and Jesse the Body.
Jesse the Body announcer.
Not being in the booth.
Yeah, retired.
Didn't even consider that.
No, these are big
vibes down. Plus
institutional losses.
Plus, for the first time this year, we get to drop a little. We should have done this with the Raiders. East Coast, baby. It's a 10 a.m. start. It's a 10 a.m. start for the West Coast team, Sam.
Long journey. Long journey across the country.
That. Now, you make fun of my picks, but the year that I think
Actually,
this
can't be that long a journey. It's New Orleans. Arizona to New Orleans? That can't be that far.
It's still Eastern time, right? New Orleans? Or were they
Central, I think. But more to the point, it's not a long distance. It can't be that long a flight. How long is the flight? A chartered jet? It's like, can't be that far.
Doesn't matter. Vegas, though, 10 a.m. start for them. That's going to be rough.
Yeah, no, Vegas. And that's
the year that I always took the East Coast team, though, when they were hosting the West Coast team, I think I had good results.
Okay. This is less than a 3-hour flight. It's nothing.
It's a time change, Sam. It's the time change, not the length of the flight.
Time change,
it's the body clock. What else are you looking for in this one? Anything?
I mean, you've got to be at least fascinated slightly in what Spencer Rattler can do. My hopes aren't high, but sure, let's have a look. Is their offensive line going to be as problematic as it looks like it could be? So yeah, I mean,
Well, the Saints' offensive line, I don't know if it's actually problematic, because Kelvin Banks looked good in the preseason at left tackle. He's still a rookie, right? So they actually could be sneaky good. Talise Fuanga moving back to the right side, Eric McCoy back at center. That's really when things fell apart last year. Now they're banged up. Guards are a question. We'll see what happens. But I think the Saints' offensive line is definitely something I'm keeping an eye on, especially those matchups. So remember what the Cardinals brought in with Josh Sweat. And it's not even a full – Walter Nolan's barely played, didn't even see the field during training camp or whatever, but they have Calais Campbell in there, Dalvin Tomlinson up front, Darius Robinson in year 2 as a guy that can move inside and outside there. So they just have more pieces there. So that matchup against the Saints offensive line, I think, is a really good one, both run game and pass game.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been doing some research. Phoenix is, of course, on Mountain Time, and New Orleans is in Central Time, but one of them is observing daylight savings or something, so somehow it's still 2 hours different instead of 1.
Right.
It's confusing.
Phoenix is West Coast until the winter.
Yeah.
They're Pacific time till the winter.
That's confusing.
All right, let's make a pick because we're here. Because we're 2 hours and 15 minutes into the show.
I assume I've taken the Cardinals, yes.
I'll also take the Cardinals, and Harry's taking the Saints. Harry's just out on an island on a bunch of different picks here, which I love. Just 4 more games here, Sam. That's it. Quick break to talk about our sponsor, Dynasty-Daddy. Dynasty-Daddy is a free, fully integrated fantasy football toolkit with league power rankings, trade calculator, start-sit tool, live draft tool, trade database, and more. Analyze all the teams in your league, identify team needs, and trade partners to give you your team, the best odds to win. Dynasty-Daddy also has a playoff calculator. You can simulate 10,000 seasons to see how the season will shake out. Go check it out right now. Using your league schedules, Dynasty-Daddy calculates the odds of making the playoffs, making the finals, winning the finals, projected records, and much more. Get the full picture when you're running through lineup decisions on Sunday with Dynasty-Daddy's start-sit tool. So this works all throughout the season. You check out all these tools plus dozens more for completely free. Free? That's right, free. At Dynasty-Daddy.com. That's Dynasty-Daddy.com. Now, I would like to know what that noise is.
I have been wondering. It sounds a lot like a dog squeaky toy, but who knows?
So we're just going to have random squeaky toys.
I mean, I would suggest that the best thing it could be is a dog or child squeaky toy. If it's not that, then I think we've got some serious concerns.
Will says they didn't hear it, so we're good. 4 more games. We got this. Are we going to be a 3-hour preview show now? We might be. We're NFL countdown. San Francisco 49ers at the Seattle Seahawks. Niners favored by 2.5. I say that.
Surprising.
I'm a little surprised.
You are. The shock is clear.
We're suggesting a neutral site, 5.5 here, or 5. The Niners are favored here against the Seahawks. I don't believe the man in Vegas who makes these decisions is a Sam Darnold believer.
No,
based off everything we've learned this offseason, over-unders.
Understandable enough.
This game. So what are we looking for here in this game?
I am curious whether – so the 49ers have had their standard offseason issues with wide receiver that they only resolve like a couple of days before the season. This time you've got Juwan Jennings. You also have obviously Brandon Ayuk coming back off his injury. So as much as I think overall this offense is going to have most of their key elements still intact and therefore be good long term, I don't know if week 1 is necessarily going to be the time that shows itself. Juwan Jennings did get himself a little bit of a pay increase, albeit I think all like incentive based. I don't think they actually gave him any more money. I think they said, hey, if you actually do anything this year, you can have more money by virtue of that play. So he's got like a $3 million incentive bump, I think. Brandon Ayuk is still working his way back from that injury. So if there's a time to catch the 49ers, it's now.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think I'm back and forth on the Niners. I think they're underrated coming off a 6-win team or a 6-win game. Underrated probably to the average public that doesn't bet or doesn't look
Q public?
Yes, them. But then Vegas has them like their over-unders like 10 or whatever. I mean, they're high, right? So they're a lot of the data-centric analysis is like the Niners are still good. They're still very good. But when you're coming off a 6-win season, a lot of times you forget those things. So I'm back and forth because I think they have far more holes than they had 2 years ago. Far more holes than they had last year going into the season, including defensive tackle. And it's not even a hole, it's a question. What do the 2 rookies look like, Alfred Collins, C.J. West? Can they shore up the interior of their defense? And the same question is valid for Seattle. Will their interior offensive line be much better than it was or just better than it was last year? And if the preseason matters at all, They looked good.
Yeah, they did.
New scheme seems to fit, right? And Clint Kubiak coming in. Remember, they had
which should be a thing. It wasn't last year.
Legit last year for 2 weeks.
Right. It wasn't last year. Generally, this sort of Shanahan derivative offense usually has been very good at hiding offensive lines that look like they're problematic. Last year, for some reason, that evaporated. It just disappeared as a concept. Maybe it's back. Maybe that was just a one-year aberration of weird play. But theoretically, this new Clint Kubiak offense should be a good fit for both the offensive line and for Sam Darnold, and then correspondingly for the run game. It should boost quite a large element of this offense.
So I want to keep an eye on that generally. Of course, how does Sam Darnold look? What does the pass game look like for Seattle? What do the weapons look like for Brock Purdy?
Torrey Horton, breakout game, week 1.
Need Torrey Horton right away. Do they have enough speed in Seattle?
They do with Torrey.
So that's a fair question. How do they pass protect? Right, you still have Nick Bosa over there. You have Bryce Huff over there. Right, so you've got some.
Bryce Huff will be interesting.
Right, so pass protection, run game, the entire offensive line for Seattle. The other big question I have is on the defense for Seattle. I think they have high-end potential there. I love the depth they've built on the defensive line. I think they have a couple pivotal players in year 2, Byron Murphy, free agent DeMarcus Lawrence. I think they can make some huge impact up front. And Reek Woolen, Devin Witherspoon in the secondary, at corner. They've got lockdown potential. And then you just wrap it all in Mike McDonald's second year of the system. I think Seattle's defense can be really, really good. So we've mentioned Seattle in this wide range of outcomes for various reasons, whether it's the defensive potential, whether it's we don't know what we're getting from Sam Darnold. And it'll be his full year starting and since leaving the Jets. We don't know what that's going to look like, but he was fantastic for most of last year until the last 2 games. So get some of these answers here.
Yeah, and we should get an idea of what happens when he gets put under significant pressure as well. I mean, Nick Bosa against Abraham Lucas is a mismatch in San Francisco's favor. So Charles Cross might be able to hold up fine on his side, but if they tee up Nick Bosa against Abraham Lucas, that is a matchup that should go Bosa's way basically every time. And Darnold's going to have to show that he does not melt down under that kind of pressure.
The other thing with Darnold's season last year, right? I thought Kevin O'Connell schemed it up extremely well because that's what he does, and they had a good group of pass catchers, right? So those were things obviously in Darnold's favor to create a good statistical profile to have success. I thought Darnold also did a really nice job when he made mistakes bouncing back, and he made some tough throws. He made some stand in there, really difficult throws. So if you're saying, maybe the run game's better for him this year, but the playmakers are worse. I don't want to say it's a push in Clint Kubiak versus Kevin O'Connell, calling plays necessarily, but who knows how that plays out. In other words, the situation on paper is not as good unless they get that run game going, unless it truly is a lot of favorable third downs, favorable situations, play action game. So I want to see what it all looks like, man. But against the Niners defensive front that had to overhaul things. So that's where I think Seattle might be able to run the ball effectively here against San Francisco.
Yeah, all those young defensive linemen for San Francisco, like their first action, for real. Like we've said it all offseason, they need probably 2 of those guys to play well year 1. Otherwise, they will have a weakness on the defensive
Alfred
line.
Collins, by the way, 6'5". I saw people talking about him before the draft as a nose tackle type. Like that's not his skill set, his game. He's high cut. I don't want to say he had a Mozzie Smith-like preseason, but he was kind of getting blown off the ball a little bit in the preseason. He doesn't look ready to be that guy. CJ West, who we liked quite a bit coming out, but he's a third-round rookie. That's high expectations for those guys. Right. Jordan Elliott is in the mix there. He's never been great at stopping the run, so I think that it's an unknown for San Francisco on the defensive front.
They probably need one of those 2 defensive tackles and Michael Williams to play well this year. Otherwise, the defensive line, I think, will be a weakness for them.
That's right.
Even with Nick Bosa.
He'll be fun to watch here and see what he's a good run defender, and I think that certainly helps on the edge. And then this is Brock Purdy's been paid, right? So now you have this dynamic where Deebo Samuel's out, and you start to lose a couple players here and there. McCaffrey trying to come back off of injury. He's an unknown.
Huge unknown.
A lot of unknowns here.
This is my dad, of all people, sent me a meme of It was like the 49ers trying to prove that Christian McCaffrey's healthy and ready to go for week 1. And it was, when they wheeled out the Pope like a day before he died, and he was like, looked like death is away from the window. It's like, see, he's fine. I know what your problem is. And then like 24 hours later, it's the Pope's died.
Does the doctor believe that the double Achilles issue that he dealt with last year is behind
I haven't
him?
asked him, but evidently from his meme usage, he believes that this whole Christian McCaffrey thing, like maybe he's actually, just a glass human at this point and is one hit away from being on the shelf again.
Does your dad want to do the boo-boo breakdown?
I don't know. Yeah, maybe.
We've said before, like, my dad brings stuff to the table in a different way. Your dad could bring something to the table. We could have some dad segments here.
We could, yeah. I mean, look, we could pitch an injury at him and see what he thinks. I don't see why not.
Wasn't he doing some podcasting? Is he? Because he's not like awful on camera, right?
No, he's fine. He would. I'm sure he would bring some. He would definitely bring some entertainment to the table. I don't know how valuable his insight in the specific injury would be.
As entertaining as my dad fixing the Christmas tree.
Maybe. Who knows?
Walking
it's hard
through.
To say.
Walking through.
It's a different type of entertainment.
Yeah. All right, man. Let's make a pick here. It's Niners by 2.5.
Going with the Seahawks.
I'll also take Seattle. Harry's either going to kill us or he's getting crushed. He's taking the Niners. We're both taking Seattle. I'm taking Seattle as the home underdogs. Absolutely. Over-under is just 43.5. Again, it's like not a lot of trust in Darnold in points in this game.
Wasn't it always the adage that, defense it's always ahead week 1. Defense starts faster.
It is an adage.
Yeah, I don't know if it's true or not anymore, but
it's definitely
something people think. Maybe Vegas thinks it too.
Tennessee Titans at the Denver Broncos, Sunday at 4. Broncos favored by 7.5 here. Debut for Cam Ward.
Debut for Cam Ward, but also brings us to our breaking news of the day, which is freshly minted, new second contract, new paid Nick Bonito for the Denver Broncos is now the highest paid non-quarterback in Broncos history.
Oh, wow. Look at that. I mean, the cap's right. I mean, it's just
right. Yeah. I mean, it's all 4 years, 120 million. Yeah.
Okay.
It was 70 million guaranteed.
Good for Nick Bonito. I mean, former second-round pick, explosive pass rusher. Took him a little bit to get going. Started to turn the corner early last year, but like really around week 7 or 8, he was top 8 to 10 edge rusher after week 7, including some high-end plays. We're talking pick sixes, making plays in coverage, run game, pass game. Bonito is fantastic. And I don't want to say he gets lost in this mix, but when you're trying to choose a star from that Denver defensive front, it's tough to say it's this guy. It is really all of them, but they just paid Bonito. They just paid Zach Allen this offseason. They have a whole group, Jonathan Cooper, like they have a bunch of dudes who can get after the quarterback. But Bonito, I think it's well-deserved, man. I think he's on the ascent, and it was on its way, and they got it done before the season.
Yeah, I really like Nick Bonito as a prospect coming out. And as you said, the slow start, wasn't great. Made you worry that he's just another one of these sort of undersized edge rushers that only brings speed and quickness to the table. And once they get to the NFL level, it's just not enough. And then he did develop and really turn it on. And now he's a genuine problem as a pass rusher. And maybe he will, maybe he'll always have a relative weakness as a run defender, but right now as a pass rusher, that guy's a massive plus for this defense.
So that's the first matchup I wanted to highlight here. Of course, Cam Ward making his debut, going up against Vance Joseph's defense, but it's not just what Vance does, it's that pass rush with Nick Bonito, Zach Allen, John Franklin Myers, Jonathan Cooper, who I mentioned. They got some dudes who can get after the quarterback. They'll mix it up. They'll blitz a little bit. Jonah Ellis, by the way, maybe as a rotational rusher this year with his explosiveness and his agility. They've got a lot of people who can get after the quarterback going up against this revamped Titans offensive line. Dan Moore at left tackle, J.C. Latham over to right tackle, Kevin Zeitler coming in at right guard. We've said all offseason on paper the Titans could be a top 10 to 15 pass protecting unit, if not better. And if that's the case, Cam Ward has a chance to at least have some success here. So they're going to get tested right away against this defensive front.
Yeah, for multiple reasons. Number one, because of the talent. Number two, this is an aggressive schematic defense.
It is.
They blitz a lot. They play a lot of man coverage. They've upgraded the personnel to play man coverage. So they're going to come after the rookie right away and expect him to make plays. And, you're almost going to get an immediate answer of whether the supporting cast in Tennessee, particularly in terms of the receiving core, I think, but also the offensive line, like whether they've done enough to help Cam Ward out with those elements. This is it's a relatively static offense against a very aggressive defense, right? By that, I mean they play a lot of 11 personnel, 3 wide receivers. They don't use a ton of motion, the sort of the easy buttons, if you like, the things that are trying to help out a quarterback. And it's going up against a defense that what they're going to bring as well. They're going to play man coverage and they're going to come after you with the blitz. Like, it's a very simple picture for Cam Ward to deal with. Like, what it's going to look like down in, down out, but it's going to be hard. So can he, hit the ground running in that regard? The fact that the rookie Ayomanor is starting, at least according to their depth chart, like it's Calvin Ridley is their unquestioned number one proven high-end receiver. And then you've got, like, can the rookie bring enough to the table? Can Tyler Lockett resuscitate himself as a slot weapon, or is he firmly in the decline and no longer like the factor that he used to be? Just do they have enough around Cam Ward?
I have concerns about that. We've said for years, love Ridley as a 2, but when he's the number 1, he'll have some games here and there. It's the week in, week out consistency. They're using Tyler Lockett in a true slot role.
Yeah.
Like, he's getting the jet sweep looks. He's getting the orbit motion type stuff. I don't know if that's his skill set, right? For a guy that's generally been an outside receiver, very good route runner who, will catch the ball over the middle, but, protects himself. He's been an outside receiver, though, for the majority of his career. I'm not sure that's the best fit for Tyler Lockett.
I mean, it sort of feels like where you put a guy to try and extend his career a bit, and see if he can still.
And that's how Thielen did. Thielen was a slot, but he became like, hey, you're just be in the right spot at the right time, slot receiver at the end of your career. Reggie Wayne did that with the Colts. We'll see. We'll see what happens with Lockett here. I think they're lacking a little bit from a playmaker perspective, though.
Yeah. And then you also worry about, not worry, where is Cam Ward going to be either side of that line of, like, the bad boneheaded play every game? The Drake May world. Is he going to avoid that? Is he going to have at least one every game? Will he make enough big plays to offset it so that it doesn't matter? Because that's entirely true as well.
I want to see what buttons they press there, because using my 2 practices that I saw as a gauge, I saw third down day where it looked a lot like a Vance Joseph defense attacking. It was rough for Cam Ward. I saw a day where they did a lot of 2-minute, and his ability, I think the quickness, the speed of the no huddle and just being more reactive, I thought was great for Cam Ward. I want to see if is that something that Brian Callahan leans into, where it's like, hey, we're gonna run hurry up, we're gonna dictate to the defense and try to play to Cam. I think that could be a potential strength of Cam Ward's. We haven't seen him play in the NFL yet.
And then generally, just what kind of playmaking ability can he bring to the table? He's got a special arm. He's got an extremely high level athleticism baseline as well. Like, he can make plays. The question becomes, can he make enough plays to offset, either a basic struggle or a bad play decision, turnover here or there? But, we multiple years in a row now of, like, the number 1 player, the number 1 quarterback in a draft, even if the number 1 quarterback went number 2 overall, or 3 overall, whatever. The number 1, like the top quarterback of a given draft class, looking really good. Like, what if Cam Ward continue the trend of C.J. Stroud and Jaden Daniels of just being incredibly good right out of the gate?
On Denver's side, year 2 of Bo Nix and his progression, there's a lot of stories about the comparisons to Drew Brees and the strong finish last year as a rookie. So watching Nix, and then Broncos wide receiver watch beyond Cortland Sutton. We saw Troy Franklin have a really good preseason. Can he carry that into games? Marvin Mims. I mean, enough that they traded Devon Vele, right? So he was a pretty dependable possession type last year as a 7th-round rookie. I want to see Denver's receivers and what they look like this season.
Yeah, I obviously particularly connected to Troy Franklin, as invested in Troy Franklin, I would say.
Same.
Given that we thought he would be good, we were very excited when he finally got drafted. Like, as a 4th-round player, you're like, that's a steal. He could be great. And then he was not good year 1. In fact, was pretty bad year 1. But was open quite a lot. Like, it's obviously you got to catch the ball at the end of it. That's a pretty big part of playing wide receiver. But I think there is some importance in the fact that he was open quite a lot. And there's still, I think, some Like Bo Nix was his college quarterback. I'm pretty sure Bo Nix is invested in him being good as well. So I'm kind of excited to see if Troy Franklin can have a breakout in year 2. Marvin Mims was getting there anyway by the end of year 1. You've got rookie Pat Bryant as well that I think will be a part of the offense. So it is an interesting receiving group beyond Cortland Sutton.
Going up against a Titans team that has questions in this. Like if you were ranking their secondary or their pass rush, they're probably in the bottom 10. Unless, like, if L'Jarius Sneed gets back to where he was in 2023, maybe that changes things. But questions at cornerback 2, questions at linebacker for Tennessee, and then straight-up pass rush. Draymond Jones and Arden Key probably getting the first crack at that with Femi Oladejo getting in there. But, again, more complementary type of rushers rather than alpha types on the edge. So questions in some of the wrong spots there for the Titans.
Yeah, this was a team that didn't get a ton of pressure a year ago, and on paper it doesn't look like they've massively upgraded their ability to get pressure, so that's going to be a factor. I'm curious to see what Tavondre Sweat looks like going into year 2. It was pretty impressive year 1.
Him and Simmons next to each other, formidable. That looks good.
And Sweat is a fun player. He's almost like he's threatening to become the player that Jordan Davis was supposed to be. Only he went a lot lower, but actually. Like, he's the guy showing that kind of dynamism for that size.
All right, man. The line's moved to 8.5 since we started talking about this. I mean, or just it is. But Broncos by 8.5 here. Where are you going?
I am going with the Titans. I'm going to have a 1-week belief that Cam Ward might surprise people, and this is actually a line that should be closer than people expect it to be.
I'll take Denver, as will Harry. Because what you said was right. Hey, C.J. Stroud and Jaden Daniels. But if you also remember the last 2 years, it took them a couple weeks.
I also do hate the matchup. Now, the more I think about it, the more I think this defense specifically and
I don't like this as a debut.
Yeah,
on the road in Denver, I don't like this as a debut for Cam Ward to have success.
I think it's kind of a horrible schematic matchup for
It's a big line. It's a big line. I think the Titans can be feisty as well, but I'll take Denver to cover the 8.5. That's tied now for the biggest line this week.
Yeah.
Harry also taking
this is a lot of people's survivor pick.
I could see that with the rookie quarterback going, team with the number 1 overall pick. Houston Texans at the Los Angeles Rams. Rams favored by 3. It's Sunday at 4:25. Of course, the big question: what's Matthew Stafford going to look like with the back? If we knew he was healthy, though, man, and look, I think he's healthy enough to play. So, it's a great matchup this week by two teams that I think. Both teams in their respective conferences have that outside lane to get to the Super Bowl if some things go right and they progress in certain areas.
Yeah, I mean, look, again, remember, the Rams gave the Eagles the best game of anybody on their way through to the Super Bowl. They had a chance to win that game or snatch that game late on, and who knows what could have happened if that had manifested. Maybe the Rams would be the Super Bowl champions again. And to that team-ish, they have added Devontae Adams. They've added some serious juice to a team that could have gone on a Super Bowl run last year. And, Matthew Stafford is obviously a quarterback that's capable of doing that in that he's done it already. So there's no reason not to look at the Rams and say this is a team that could be a division champion, a playoff contender, and a genuine Super Bowl threat. But why don't you tell us, as an old man dealing with a back injury, what he's working through right now?
Yeah, so when I turn, I move my whole body together. It's like I got to turn like this, Back's been bothering me for the last week.
Would that hinder your ability to work through a progression?
Yeah, so like instead of, you'd have to probably turn your whole body to get to backside, And
Can't just. Well, is that going to mess with his no-look passes?
And then when I'm wrestling with my kids, and they tackle me, I'm like, Dad's back hurts, Now, I'm sure Stafford, when Danielle Hunter's jumping on him, is going, Danielle, my back, I'm an old man.
Well, Stafford has some of the best no-look passes ever, right?
No, that's
where he's like, but it's all based off head, right? He's looking over here, but his eyes are over here, so he just fires the ball like that way. Now, I'm busy breaking the microphone. Now he's got to be like, in order to no-look over here, he's got to be turned over here, and somehow that's not going to work. Can't no-look anymore.
If you're losing the no-look, that's at least a point.
It's problematic.
It should be Rams by 2, just saying. So, yeah, it's not great.
No.
A lot to watch for.
That being said, he's likely to be shot up to the gills with whatever they inject in pain medication and probably good to go.
Yeah, I mean, the bigger thing is less about this week and week 8,
right?
Week 15. Playoffs, like it's the survival of the entire season. Yeah, the Rams on paper, adding Devontae Adams to Puka Nacua, and look, we could say Amari Cooper, DeAndre Hopkins, like Hopkins especially, just looked completely different last year. Devontae Adams has not shown those signs yet.
Yeah.
Now, other receivers don't show signs until they show signs. It is very difficult. Like, you don't get this progressive lose a half a step and half a step and a half a step and then it's over. It's more cliff-like at receiver than the media tells you, when the media tells you about the QB cliffs. It's more realistic at receiver. But Devontae still looks really good. Can run routes, he can get open, and as a compliment to Puka Nacua, that can be special, even at 33 or whatever he is. We're also, for the first time ever, thinking, are they going to run more two tight end sets? Getting second-rounder Terrence Ferguson in there with Tyler Higbee. There's some versatility to this Rams offense and some explosiveness as long as Stafford's healthy. Offensive line very much back intact. And then the other side of the ball, of course, we'll all be watching the Texans' offensive line and seeing if they've improved from last year. And, oh, by the way, Jared Verse is on the other side of a rookie second-rounder. So keep an eye. Keep an eye on that one.
Yeah, that has the potential to absolutely ruin their day. I mean, obviously, the offensive line for Houston, I think, is a huge thing. Worst offensive line in the NFL maybe last year, certainly one of the worst, and they traded away the best player from it. Maybe the moves that they've made and the shuffling of the deck will result in a net positive and the group will be better, in large part because it would be difficult to be much worse. It could be bad, though. I mean, it could easily be very bad again. And if it is, we already saw last year, it's not that turns C.J. Stroud into a pumpkin and makes him a terrible quarterback, but it does make his job a hell of a lot harder. And on top of that, now you're dealing with two of his top three wide receivers are rookies, and they don't have that inbuilt connection already. So there's potentially more hesitancy built into the offense because of that. Maybe C.J. Stroud will have to hold the ball a tick longer, and that's making the offensive line, like, it could be a spiral.
So I think the Rams have the advantage with their D-line going up against the Texans' O-line.
Yep.
But I love the Texans' receivers against the Rams' secondary. So if the line can hold up just enough, if they can hold up enough, and they're going up against not only Jared Verse, but year 2 of Braden Fisk, year 3 of Kobe Turner, Byron Young at the other edge, Josiah Stewart, who showed some explosiveness in the preseason as a rookie coming out of Michigan. So there's some dudes who can get after the QB for the Rams. But I think Jaden Higgins has a chance to make an impact right away. A healthy Nico Collins, we've talked him up all season as a top 5 potential wide receiver. Yeah. That's where the Texans, I believe, have the advantage in this game, as long as the line is good enough up front.
And somebody made the point recently, which is reasonably fair, that we should at least offer the option that, Arante Ursary may be very good as a rookie. Because we talked up Josh Simmons, right? Like, Josh Simmons is the answer for Kansas City as a low first-round draft pick. And if he hits the ground running, the Chiefs' offense is fixed. They're going to a Super Bowl again. They're explosive again. Hallelujah, it's all done. What if Ursary is good, right? And it's possible. I think there are some differences between Ursary and Simmons, which is why the narrative around them is slightly different, right? Simmons was supposed to be a top half of the first-round draft pick who slid because he had a bad knee injury, and it turns out the bad knee injury might not be a problem at all. That, I think, is slightly different to a guy that was never expected to be a top first-round draft pick, who the difference between them in overall pick slot might be quite small, but I think the difference between them in prospect was more significant than that. But it is fair to say, like, Ursary might not be a problem. Like, he might be good at left tackle. And if he is, it's 1/5 of your offensive line is in better shape than it looks like on paper.
Appreciate you just being fair.
Thank you.
And saying, could be good. Guy could be good.
I also, this is week 1 is going to be a lot of sort of general fence sitting / asking questions more than declaring things, because
I agree.
Who the hell knows?
Next week, we will make declarative statements because we have 1 week of evidence.
Exactly.
And whatever you saw last week is exactly what you're going to see this week, as we've always learned.
Yes, correct. I mean, look, we've been doing this long enough that we know if you're out here making ridiculous declarative statements before you've even seen them play, it's kind of crazy. And even after a week, it's a little bit crazy.
The new North Carolina, Bill Belichick has developed a championship caliber offense off of 6 plays.
To be fair,
they looked great.
That first drive did look like
Gio Lopez was like,
this is vintage Tom Brady carving up, some sucker defense that Bill Belichick has just executed from a schematic point of view.
Bill Belichick's team 9 months to prepare for a drive,
you're going to get this.
That's what you get.
Maybe
now, once you have to make in-game adjustments,
right.
rough.
after the first drive.
Once they adjust.
It's like the script. The script, for 9 months to work on the script is awesome. Outside of the script, we got some issues.
Maybe Bill's a paint-by-numbers coach. Nick Chubb watch for Houston. Just the running back situation generally. We know Joe Mixon banged up and could be significant.
Yeah.
Season is in doubt there. Yeah. Can they get – look, I'm not saying he becomes what he was. If Nick Chubb is 80% of what he was at his peak in Cleveland.
I would so love to see it, though, just from a comeback story.
It would be really good. Honestly, like Mixon, Nick Chubb losing a step lands at Joe Mixon.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Unless he loses a lot.
Right.
It lands at what Joe Mixon's capable
in
of.
a world of like, there's so many NFL players that you have to talk about and maybe even root for in a given day that have so many bad aspects to their character. Like, it would be great to really, I mean, there's a lot of players that don't as well that are, great human beings as well. But like Nick Chubb is one of those guys. He's the good guy that you want to root for. And he had a horrible, no injury like that is deserved necessarily, but like he had a completely undeserved, horrible victim of fortune injury that blew his whole knee apart and derails his career. It would be great if Nick Chubb, the person, got back to being Nick Chubb, the great football player, and we can all celebrate an incredible comeback.
And we'll all be keeping a close eye on it. So, look, it's another outstanding matchup. It's Sunday, 4:25. Rams favored by 3 here against the Texans. By the way, I'm high on both teams. I'm wary of the back issue with Stafford. I know we keep saying it, but I could see both teams making a conference championship game this year. So I think it's a great first week.
You're acutely aware of the back injury as a back-injured human right now.
Every time I move, I'm thinking, man, how's this dude going to play?
Right.
How's this guy going to play?
As somebody not dealing with a back injury, I have no concerns about Matthew Stafford, so I'm taking the Rams.
I'll take Houston because my back hurts. As will Harry, who's not dealing with back problems, but he's still a believer in the Texans.
Put that on a quote graph.
I'm taking the Texans because my back hurts. And the best analysis, Sam, is when you yourself can just insert yourself into the story. That's what everybody loves. They want to know just about you.
There's no way that Matthew Stafford's back problem is in any way, shape, or form different from yours.
It's the worst analysis ever, and I am also aware when I do that, as I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
Insert myself. Sometimes you have to.
Sometimes it's fun.
Sometimes it is fun. I have a bad back, so does Stafford, so I'll take the Texans. I was actually honestly surprised by the line. I thought it would be closer to a pick 'em. See, look at that.
Yeah, perfect.
That's
Nail
the key. That's the key this week.
Screenshot it, tweet it.
I got one more game. That's all your Sunday games.
Yes.
And your Friday games.
And Monday.
And your Monday game. But it's tonight. Dallas Cowboys, Philadelphia Eagles. With 2 first-round future picks for the Dallas Cowboys. We'll just
playing tonight, making their debut.
Future. Yeah. The future's bright in Dallas, but tonight might not be. Eagles by 8.5 as of now. Also losing some eyesight. So over-unders 47.5 per FanDuel. You're defending Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles, defending their title, starting tonight.
Yeah. I'm curious to see what this Dallas team's going to look like without Micah Parsons. To what degree was his freelancing the problem? Is the run defense fixed now that they've got Kenny Clark? Will Kenny Clark on his own be able to stop the juggernaut of 2,000-yard Saquon Barkley and the Eagles' running game?
You and I are going to be
obnoxious, insufferable.
Well, we're going to be live for 3 hours talking about this. So we're going to be right here on this YouTube channel, reacting live. We won't be able to show it. We're going to be your second screen, right? You're gonna mute Chris and Mike and listen to us.
Okay.
Because that's what we're going to do.
Sure.
I'm going to mute Chris and Mike and listen to you. And we're going to watch the game together, watch along here tonight. Mm-hmm. If you're a big funniest thing possible guy, what if Kenny Clark is the answer? What if Saquon Barkley goes 20 carries for like 22 yards? Kenny Clark, stout in the middle. Mozzie Smith is rejuvenated next to Kenny. Cowboys' run defense is elite. And they get just enough pass rush from Marshawn Nealand and Donovan Ezeraku and all the replacements there. That's the funniest thing possible. Like Jerry's right. in this whole, Parsons limps through like 12 plays this weekend.
Funniest thing possible is that Jerry was right.
Jerry's right.
Yeah.
Jerry takes all the negative press, but he nailed it. It's a steal for 2 first rounders.
Yeah, I mean, if Donovan Azaraku goes out there and gets 3 sacks in his debut, and then Jerry's just out here doing victory laps from the box, that would be pretty funny.
I think it would be. It's funny because all during the preseason, there was talk about, look, this Dallas defensive front. Now, that was under the assumption of Micah Parsons is your number 1 pass rusher. But it's a group of intriguing players. Marshawn Nealand, Sam Williams, Dante Fowler comes back. James Houston's there. I mean, they've got a whole bunch of players who either had some potential or have done it at some point and been pretty good. So they're trying to do this whole in the aggregate deal. I don't know if it gets there, but it's intriguing at least.
It does take on a very different complexion, though, once you take away, Micah Parsons from it. Like,
of course.
They're a very intriguing group when they're behind the guy that is going to get a ton of pressure and be one of the most dynamic playmakers in the entire NFL at his position. When they have to be that themselves, it doesn't look anything near the same. They've got some players that can pick up pressure here or there, but it goes from being maybe one of the better pass rushing units in the NFL with Micah Parsons to maybe being one of the worst, not the worst, but like it's a pretty rough looking group if they don't take steps forward or somebody emerges or Azaraku hits the ground running. It's a weakness, I think, now.
In general, I'm looking for the Eagles' run game against Dallas. Dallas has had some serious issues stopping the run. Saquon Barkley, coming off of obviously his big year.
Can I give you one funniest thing to happen would be Jerry was right? Another funniest thing to happen was that Dallas gives up 7 yards per carry on the ground and it goes right through Kenny Clark.
Okay, that's more likely than not. I mean, it's more likely than they shut down Saquon at 1.3 per carry. Landon Dickerson banged up on the offensive line. I don't know what his status necessarily will be, but there's already a question at right guard. Tyler Steen likely jumping in for Mekhi Becton. That was one of the offseason watches there for the Eagles. So, they might be hurt in the area that Dallas can exploit with Kenny Clark. But look, I think the Eagles won the Super Bowl not because of one thing, because of all things, right? Because they're good defensively. They rush the passer. They can win through the air, and they can run the ball. And so I think they have the advantage in many areas. I don't know if I think 8.5 is a lot. Mm-hmm. I don't think Dallas is awful. I think they're dealing with what I was saying the Niners are coming off of, right? Like, you didn't win a lot of games last year, but you're forgetting the baseline talent in Dallas. Even without Micah Parsons, it's a lot better than a lot of other 6-win teams, right? Dak Prescott throwing to CeeDee Lamb. George Pickens is in town now, right?
That would be fun.
And you have, Trayvon Diggs is banged up in the secondary. We'll see if he plays. But, there's still some talent here in Dallas.
There is. 2 important players for them, though, are working their way back from injury. That's never good. Trayvon Diggs, who you mentioned. Tyler Guyton, remember, has been on the shelf basically through the majority of training camp, preseason. It's a big year for him as well. He was really important a year ago, didn't play particularly well. They still rely on him now at left tackle. The interior, you've got Tyler Booker, rookie at right guard, who needs to be solid as well. So the offensive line, it will be intriguing to watch. The backfield does not look good at all. Will they find any kind of joy there? The CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens dynamic, axis, that'll be pretty fun to watch. Can Dak Prescott have a good year? All those things. But they've lost one of the best players in the NFL, and I don't think that's going to help.
The Cowboys' offensive line against the Eagles' defensive line, also huge, right? The Eagles losing a couple players, but they have the youth and some veterans sprinkled in there to replace them. They're always deep. Can they prove that, hey, we're 8 deep again on the defensive line? Jalen Carter, Tyler Booker right off the bat. Good luck. Go get them. My concern with Booker was not just the bad testing, but it showed up on film, was the foot speed, right?
They must have played already, right, in college?
Yeah. I don't remember
I'm just going to assume Jalen Carter did well because...
Yeah, I don't remember the exact results. I mean, I think Booker's fine. I mean, this is it's a dog. It was a dog toy.
See?
Dogs here.
Told you.
The Cowboys offense, this is the most concerned been about the Cowboys offensive line in about a decade.
A decade?
Yeah. I mean, because 10 years ago, they were great. Travis Frederick, Zach Martin, they've been good for a long time. Tyron Smith. and they've been chipped away at. It started with Tyler Guyton last year. Now Martin's out, and Booker's in, and maybe he's great as pick number 12, but it's the most concerned I've been for a while, and I think the Eagles have a chance to exploit them up front.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible. That's the Tyler Booker thing. Remember, he a first-round draft pick, but a guy that was fairly significantly overdrafted relative to the consensus board, and generally speaking, the history of overdrafting people significantly relative to the consensus board is bad. He had not a good what's the word I'm looking for here? Athletic profile. The tape is a lot better, in fairness to Dallas, but when you're picking a guy 12 overall, you don't want to be picking a guy that has to be an exception in a couple of different ways in order for it to work. So it's a definite concern.
And then throw in, just from a run game perspective, they did pretty well with Rico Dowdle last year. By the way, Brian Schottenheimer taking over his first game as head coach. But a battle between Javonte Williams, Miles Sanders, Jaden Blue, the rookie. It doesn't look like the running back room has just gotten worse and worse over the last couple of years for Dallas. Combined with the offensive line questions, I think it's another year maybe, or at least tonight especially, a lot of pressure on Dak Prescott in the passing game to be really, really good and efficient. And then you just have the game one bump for the defending champs here. But we'll make a pick in a second here, but I can't wait to watch live. Get to pick our brain. We'll interact, watch in real time here. We're going to interact with the chat.
Yeah, we have to use the laptop.
Yeah, we'll have a laptop. We'll interact with that and just watch it in real time. See what we can see.
Yeah.
All right, man. Let's do it. 8.5. FanDuel's line on the Eagles. Where are you going with this?
I'm going with the Eagles.
I will also take the Eagles, even though I've been defending Dallas's remaining talents quite a bit.
Yeah.
And Harry will also take the Eagles. We did it under 3 hours.
Just about.
Used to be a 2-hour show.
Yeah.
Might be again this year, but we'll see. There's a lot to talk about in week one. And I can't wait for Monday morning, man. It is my favorite. I love coming in here, 7 a.m., and I don't know what you're going to say. I don't know what your reactions are.
Nobody does.
Right? I can't wait to hear what you have to say Monday morning at 7 a.m. We hope you're going to join us as well every week. Monday, 7 a.m., our reaction shows.
It's usually our biggest show of the year. So you guys need to show up Monday morning, bright and early, 7 a.m., and be part of the biggest show we have every year.
Tell your friends, hit the thumbs ups, do the subscribe thing, and get ready because YouTube memberships are coming up soon. We're going to have very special extra perks memberships through YouTube that we'll be announcing very, very soon. All right. That it for us?
Yep.
Thanks to everybody for tuning in. Enjoy the football tonight. We'll see you again Monday morning. We'll see you tonight, but also Monday morning, 7 a.m. Check the mic.